I'm Dave Navarro, and you're checking out Volume, your liner notes to the world of music.
Delivering the news you need to know. This is a Volume News Brief on Sirius XM 106.
The music world mourns the loss of Linkin Park frontman Chester Bennington, who hanged himself on Thursday at the age of 41. Besides the band that made him famous, Bennington had also fronted Stone Temple Pilots for 2 years and was a member of the rotating door supergroup Kings of Chaos. Fellow Kings member and Guns N' Roses bassist Duff McKagan tweeted, "R.I.P. Chester B." Lars Ulrich called Bennington, quote, "gracious, kind, and humble, a rare combination in rock and roll." David Coverdale said, "Our thoughts and prayers to the family, friends, and fans of Chester," adding, "far too young." And drummer Mike Portnoy recalled, quote, "This is the man that just sang Hallelujah at Chris Cornell's funeral 2 months ago." Bennington was an Uber fan and friend of the late Soundgarden frontman. Thursday, the day Bennington took his life, would also have been Cornell's 53rd birthday.
Your source for breaking news from the world of music. This is Volume, Sirius XM 106.
You're listening to Feedback with Nick Carter and Lori Majewski.
Volume, Sirius XM 106.
Sirius XM 106, it's Volume for a Friday. Feedback, Nick Carter and Lori Majewski. And I feel bad because I got to I put Maddie in a really awkward position last night at Guns N' Roses. I was tweeting out that Axl hadn't really said anything, but the very end. Well, not really the end. Near the end, they started doing covers, and they broke into AC/DC, A Whole Lot of Rosie. And then Axl left the stage, and the band did Pink Floyd, Wish You Were Here, instrumental. And I was like, and I said to Lori, I bet you this is their tribute to Chester. And then they finished that up, and Axl comes back, and he sits down in front of this grand piano, and I'm like, oh, they're going to do November Rain. And they start to do the coda, the piano coda from Clapton, Layla. And then, so they do November Rain, and then they do this, Knocking on Heaven's Door, and I just burst into tears. I'm in the middle of the world-famous Apollo, and I'm standing in the corner by myself, and I'm just crying. And Maddie comes over to say something. He's like, hey, I'm sorry, dude, I didn't mean to interrupt you in the middle of a moment. I was like, dude.
Well, it came after they played Black Hole Sun. So right. It was a 2-song-in-a-row wallop. Yeah, they started with the sort of barrel house piano version of Black Hole Sun, the player piano from Westworld. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then the band themselves played Black Hole Sun, and Axl sang it. That's right. And then they went into Knocking on Heaven's Door, and I just fell apart. So, anyway, obviously, you've heard Chester Bennington left us yesterday, ironically on what would have been Chris Cornell's 53rd birthday. And everything points to suicide. He allegedly hanged himself. And the world, I tell you, the Cornell thing was stunning. I can't believe how this one hit me.
Well, we were just with him.
Yeah.
Less than 2 months ago.
Yeah, the album came out in May, and we were there like about a month before the album came out. 3 weeks or so before the album came out. And he was just in such great spirits. He was happy. And it was so funny. I was putting on these shoes today. I'm wearing these blue diesel high tops, and I remember he was like, yo, those are dope kicks.
Yeah. And the last thing I remember saying to him, it's one of those things here at SiriusXM where, you know, a big star like that comes in and you talk to him and then they're like, we got to get on to the next thing. But he wanted to keep talking to us. He was quite lovely. And I remember the last thing I said to him is, how do you do it? I mean, you have this new record and now you have 6 kids. And he said, well, my family comes before everything. And those words kept ringing in my ears yesterday when I heard about this. I just kept thinking, his poor family, you know. But I've heard a lot of people talking about this. How could he leave his 6 children? How could he leave his wife? When someone is that down that they are going to take their own life, in that moment, they are so desperate. I mean, we can't even begin to think, but if you get to that point, you're out of your mind.
Yeah.
You're not thinking, I am leaving 6 children. You are thinking, this is the only solace I can find.
I don't know if I told you, he emailed me about like 5 days after. Well, it direct messaged me on Twitter like 5 days after. He's like, bro, so good to see you again. We're coming back. Let's hang. And I was like, all right. Thinking it was never going to happen.
Well, next week, they would have been playing in the area, here in the New York City area. And
they're about to start the tour with Blink-182 and Wu-Tang Clan.
Well, they were going to do the 2 shows, Welcome to Blinken Park, with those guys. But they were doing their very own headlining tour that was literally kicking off a week from today.
Yeah, and Shirley Alvarez, she's probably about 24 or 25. She is the biggest Linkin Park fan I know in the world. She has scleroderma, which is a skin disease that when she was 5 or 6, basically her skin becomes so hardened that it confines you to in her case, to a wheelchair.
Yeah, my mom has mild scleroderma.
Yeah,
her arm, basically, if you feel my mom's arm, it feels like reptile skin.
Yes. This has happened to Shirley, and I didn't know until about when we did the interview with Linkin Park that she is the hugest fan. Now, Shirley is someone that I met her because she came to my a book signing here in New York that I did, but then I see her at every concert. I mean, she's in a wheelchair and she is at every concert that I ever go to. She is everywhere. Anyway, so she has become quite good friends with Chester Bennington, and she was the first person I thought of yesterday when this all happened, and she was supposed to hang out with them next week, you know, and the 2 of them, she said, she's like, you know, he was always so positive with me. Hopefully we'll get to hear from her later. He was so supportive of me, but I knew that underneath he had his own struggles.
Yeah. He remembered everybody. As you saw, he gave me a big hug when we saw him. And I hadn't seen him since like 2010, maybe. And it's so weird. I mean, to your point,
he seems like a regular guy. Like, he is one of the biggest rock band of the 2000s. Probably the last big rock band. Sold millions and millions
70
of
million
records,
albums.
which no one does anymore. No. That's the last big rock band. And he walked in there, again, like Judd Apatow, like just hanging with us. We're all mutual. We're all fans.
I'd known him since like 1997. And I met him when he was literally like a kid. He's like 21. And because my boy Murdoch knew him.
Who's Murdoch?
He's just a dude he's just like typical guys in like 5 different bands. Like he plays bass in like a hard rock band. You know, he was a drummer in a ska band. And he and I shared a love of this obscure Boston industrial band called Manufacture. And he says to me, you know who else loves them? I'm like, who? He goes, I was in Chicago. He goes, my boy Chester. And I was like, nobody else knows that band. He goes, no, dude. And he calls him up. Say, hey, we're hanging out. And so he comes down, and it turns out that Chester knows this band, Manufacture, and he loves them. And I should have known because we've talked about this before, like certain labels, like if you see something's on Mute Records, you'll give it a shot.
Sub Pop. They were on this label called Network, which was like this sort of indie label. Sarah McLachlan was on it for a while, but it was mostly industrial. Like Skinny Puppy was on there and stuff. And they had like one album, and I remember thinking, I can't believe anybody out. I mean, they had like one video that showed up on MTV, like, on lunar rotation once in a blue moon. But so I'm talking to this kid, and we were just shooting the shit about industrial bands. We're going back and forth. He's like, dude, Lard. I'm like, it's like I was more, KMFDM. Dude, remember, oh my God, My Life with the Thrill Kill Cult. And at one point, and again, he's like 21, maybe 22. And at one point, I said, you know what, who never got any props? Machines of Loving Grace. He said, it's them and Sister Machine Gun. And he says, well, the thing I'm working on now, it's kind of like Frontline Assembly, but like if Eazy-E was in the band. And I go, well, how does that work? And then he started to tell me a little more about, some of the other personalities. And I think he kind of described Shinoda. And he said, well, his voice is kind of deep. And he kind of like imitated how he raps. I said, well, it's more like Frontline Assembly with Scarface in the band. So it's like 97, and I didn't think anything of it. Like 2.5 years later, the guy from Warner Brothers says, I'm going to send you something. You got to hear this. And it's one step closer, and I was like, wow. He's like, dude, this is going to blow up. I'm like, oh, all right, yeah. And remember, it's like, shut up when I'm talking to you. Shut up. It's like, it's so over the top. The guy's like a demon. And they play my station's show, and it's like, yeah, man, we're gonna go interview Chester, and I'm like, wait a minute, Chester's not
a common name.
No, it's like post like 1940. No, it's not a common name. And I see him, and remember when I first met him, he was like this quiet, like really, really just sort of tiny guy, really quiet, really reserved. And when he said, well, I'm the singer, I was just like, okay. Because he just didn't seem like the kind that was going to, jump on stage and be able to front a band.
Well, let's be honest. He looks like a Chester.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, he does.
And which is part of his charm.
Yeah.
I mean, he's adorable,
definitely.
but he looks like a Chester. And I think he made a joke during our interview, you wouldn't have named me Chester or something like that. Like, I think he did.
Yeah. So they go on stage and they rip it up. And I'm just like, dude, Frontline Assembly? He's like, yeah, well, that's just what I was thinking about. I was like, yeah, okay. So we're just, hanging out at the bar afterwards, and we're still talking about industrial bands. We're just like, it's like, dude, pretty much anything that came in a Wax Trax package I was in. It's like, dude, fucking Pigface, And then I would see him from year to year at radio stations afterwards. Wherever I was, Linkin Park would come through. And it's funny because, as I say, I didn't think he remembered me, but generally speaking, there's not a lot of people that look like me in like alternative rock radio. So generally speaking, like bands would come through and they'd be like, you're that guy, because they're used to seeing generic, more sort of like alty looking guys. And I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to claim I knew the guy well, but I hung out with him a couple of times outside of off air, as we say. And I just found him the most gentle.
Gentle's a good word.
Introspective, smart. And the thing is, like, he lightened up because he was really intense for a while. Then he got big and he became really moody. There was a couple of times when, it was difficult to talk to him just because he was just, well, now we understand he had a lot more on his plate than people even realize. But to your friend's point, I did always sort of feel sort of an underlying sadness. But I'm one that I don't always read that much into the art because, like I said yesterday, when Johnny Cash sang "I Shot a Man in Reno Just to Watch Him Die," nobody actually thought he did that.
No, but he may have had the anger in him once that he can inject into that song. We can all feel that. It's interesting when something like this happens. You try to connect the dots. You sit there and you're like, how do I see all this? Shirley told me that his favorite band was Depeche Mode.
Yeah.
Dave Gahan almost killed himself.
Right.
He was dead for 3 minutes. Chris Cornell was not only his best friend, but his idol too. So you start to put all these things together and you're like, but But I also found out yesterday, we talked about this a little at the Apollo last night, Nick. I did not know that Chester Bennington had been abused, as a child. That kind of stuff stays with you no matter how much therapy you have, no matter how much medication you take. And then, by the way, medication, if, that was a big part of what we heard had to do with Chris Cornell. Some of these medications, they haven't been so perfected yet that sometimes they give you thoughts of suicide.
Right.
But if it's just as dark as you may, we all have our dark sides.
Right.
But I was shocked because he seemed like a different guy. Like when you heard about Cornell, as upset as we all were, and we thought that he had gotten past it, we weren't completely surprised to hear it. I don't know, and we will never know, what led Chester Bennington to take his own life.
Right. Well, as I started to say, a lot of times you can't necessarily read all but so much into the lyrics because they're either sort of a metaphorical device, or for a lot of people, they're just sort of catharsis. That's a
good word.
Just a way to get it out. And so, as I say, I saw him over the years, and he was always, again, there was times when he was moody, but he was always chill with me. And as I say, I hadn't seen him in like 2009, 2010 was the last time. So I didn't assume he was going to remember me, but he just seemed like he was in a better place than I'd ever seen him. He was happy. He was smiling. He was everywhere. He did every conceivable media outlet when he was here in New York because he was so excited about this record and wanted to push it. And I know, as much as he was like, he took a FU posture on Twitter, I know it sort of hurt him, the idea that like people were just coming for him with the hate. And in the interview, I mentioned that. We're going to rerun our interview with Chester a little bit after 8 o'clock.
Nick, that was killing me yesterday. Can I just say, I have been on this show for since September, October, since we launched, and I have been saying we do not own artists. They get to do what they want. And when the hate came for Linkin Park with this latest music, I was one of the first people to say, stop it. Okay, I don't think it's the greatest stuff they've ever done either, but it could lead to something. And remember, this is another thing he has in common with Cornell, the way Cornell was shit on for the Timbaland stuff. And these things stayed with them. We talked about how when the fans came with the hate, Chester wasn't himself. The way he defended himself, he was filled with anger, and he was bitter about it. I forgot the exact words that he used, but it wasn't him. And yesterday, when I heard that he had died, I was filled with anger over all the hot takes that we saw on Twitter, all the hate that came for him. It's freaking music, people. If you don't like it, you don't like it. You don't have to love every song that every artist that you like puts out. Do you have to be so mean? I think, I was thinking about Trent Reznor and how when he shit on Cornell, on Twitter, and then he has since retracted that statement. I hope we can all learn. I think Trent Reznor learned. Look, you don't have to like it. We can criticize something without being so mean.
It's
why have we become such a mean-spirited society?
It's so extraordinary too that, and it's not any kind of coincidence that it was almost like this daisy chain of the troubled. I mean, obviously Chester had his issues, as do we all, and he fronted Stone Temple Pilots for a while, replacing Scott Weiland, and then Chris Cornell, he was the one who sang Hallelujah at Chris Cornell's funeral. It's just,
he was the godfather.
It's extraordinary.
He was the godfather to Chris Cornell's son.
As humans, as people, we try to make sense of these things when they happen. It's natural instinct. We want to make sense of it. We want to reason. We want to know the why behind things. And we may never know the why. And we probably never will know the full story because only one person really knows that. But you couldn't help yesterday but go through like a Rolodex of things. For me, a lot of criticism of this record. Chris Cornell's birthday was yesterday.
Yep.
Apparently Chris Cornell's death hit him pretty heavy, and you wonder if like all these things were weighing on him. Apparently he had been with his wife the day before. I think she stayed in Arizona. He went back to LA I think they were getting ready to prepare for the tour.
They were supposed to go and do a photo shoot Linkin Park that day.
So you wonder, you never know what's going on the home front. Like, it's just all these things you can't help but wonder what was happening.
And he left no note, which to me indicates the possibility that it was almost a knee-jerk action.
Yes.
As opposed to something that he had been planning. And I mean, again,
especially because he's so well-spoken.
Yeah.
I mean, when Chris Cornell died, he wrote this beautiful tribute to him on Instagram. Chester explains himself so well. So
like,
the
that's
fact
not
that he
the
didn't
guy,
even
right?
know.
That's not the guy that wouldn't have had something to say. That even in a horrific moment like that, that's not the guy who would have had nothing to say, no way to express himself. So again, the fact that as of now, no note has been found, that was what led me to think, well, maybe this is just something that just, again, it was a knee-jerk thing.
And that's what happens when you lose your mind. We've seen it with Robin Williams. He was having a fine day, and then something happens, and someone who worked in his home walked in and found him hanging there. It could be anything that sets you off when you have a depression like that.
So tell you what, we got to take a break, and we're really going to rip into Chester Bennington and his music and his life. We're going to hopefully have a lot of people calling in today.
Celebrate his life too.
We definitely want to hear from listeners today, but. Can we break? When we come back, can we talk about our insane emotional day yesterday into today? Get into a little bit of Guns N' Roses at the Apollo Theater last night, and how basically we had a whole show planned for today that we had to throw out the window, and I'm still reeling from all of it.
Yeah,
it started yesterday afternoon. We didn't sleep much last night. We'll get into the reasons why, and here we are trying to do a show for you that I feel is going to be like a little all over the place. It's going to be a little bit of like last night at Guns N' Roses, and today's that 30th anniversary of Appetite for Destruction, and then we have this whole the Chester Bennington's passing to deal with. It's a heavy Friday.
Okay.
At least we were all together.
Yes.
That was a kind of a cool thing. We experienced this all together. And I just want to add that the show is called Feedback, and we want to talk to you. We know you're thinking about this, but we know you're reeling as well over Chester's death. So 8446-VOLUME, we want to hear from you throughout the next few hours.
And we will be re-airing our interview with Chester a little bit after 8 o'clock. And in the 9 o'clock hour, Sean Morgan of Seether, who has his Rise Above Festival, which is his attempt to prevent suicide.
Another interesting, weird, eerie twist of fate that happened as well.
We'll get into all that in a minute. Stick around. It's Feedback.
Valuable thing. Watch it fly by as the pendulum swings. Watch it count down to the end of the day. The clock takes life away. It's so unreal. Didn't look out below. Watch the time go right out the window. Trying to hold on. Didn't even know or wasted it all just to watch.
You're listening to Feedback with Nick and Lori.
It's main event time.
The biggest super...
Kravitz.
Oh yeah!
And you're listening to Volume, Sirius XM 106.
We've got your morning wake-up call covered. This is Feedback.
On Volume, Sirius XM 106.
All right, Sirius XM 106, it's Volume for a Friday. Feedback, Nick and Lori. 844-686-5863 at Sirius XM Volume. We're going to do our best to sift through this. I mean, tragedy doesn't even begin to cover it, but the loss of Chester Bennington. I'm just going to throw this out here real fast. As somebody who grapples with depression myself, I can tell you this. The person you think is the strongest person in the world probably is, but they don't always know it. So there's nothing wrong with if you're feeling any kind of way, asking for help. But more importantly, we got to take care of each other. If you have the slightest inkling that somebody's in trouble, just ask. Like I mean, I have that, and it's tougher for men. And I have a couple of boys I know that I'll literally call them up and I'm like, because I'll just have that feeling. I'm like, what's up with you, man? You all right? And they're like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why would you ask that? I'm like, you know what? Just because I had a feeling. I'm fine. Leave me the fuck alone. What's wrong with you? And then we'll just start busting each other, and busting each other's chops. But here's the thing. It's led to some awkward moments, but I would rather feel awkward for 5 minutes than have to look back and go, I knew something was off and I said nothing.
So that's just my thought. Anyway, 844-686-5863 at Sirius XM Volume. Oh, by the way, we're going to be rerunning our interview with Chester Bennington a little bit after 8 o'clock. And, Larry Flick is usually with us, but today we thought it would just be a little weird if we were just like, hey, here's some great new music. So, we wanted to sort of just be here and open the forum for you guys. And just, let you bring us whatever's going on.
Yeah, as sad as it is losing Chester, I'd also, it's a time to celebrate his life and his music as well, and we definitely want our listeners, all you guys out there, to chime in, and I'll get into a little bit later on my story with Linkin Park and what they meant to me over the years. And we certainly encourage our listeners to as well.
Yeah, shout out to Christopher Sadler, who tweeted. He says, for anyone who was born in the 90s.
Yeah, man.
Think about that for a second.
Dude.
That's you. What year were you born?
I was born in 92. I was going to see them next Friday when they came to New York. It's one of my girlfriend's favorite bands. She was heartbroken yesterday. And it's just rough because everyone who's my age loves Linkin Park.
Right. Christopher Sadler tweeting says, for anyone who was born in the 90s, LP was an integral part of teenage years when starting to discover music. Yeah, I mean, it's not just a band. This is, for a lot of people, this was one of, if not your first bands.
Well, it wasn't that for me, and it wasn't that for a lot of people. What it was, it was a band that gave us some sort of outlet for our angst and our depression. And when we were too young to kind of put it into words or know exactly what we were feeling, there was this music that it was right there for us.
That did. I mean, I was thinking about the words to In the End yesterday and how that song completely takes on a different meaning now. So many of their songs we're going to be listening to differently, as we did with Bowie's Black Star, as we did with Chris Cornell's music. Now you look back and you're like, oh, what were they thinking? Because I actually do think most music is autobiographical, even if they're role-playing in certain cases. But one thing, Matt, you were talking about celebrating his life, and it felt really weird, like, to go back to Guns N' Roses, because that was a huge thing with SiriusXM yesterday. We had their 30th anniversary Appetite for Destruction concert at the Apollo. They're playing to thousands and thousands of people, and here 1,500 lucky people got to be in the room to see GNR play. We were lucky enough to go, but in the hours leading up to it, I kept feeling weird about going.
Yeah.
Like, are we supposed to be rocking out when something so terrible has happened to the rock community? But I felt that Guns N' Roses, and the way there were, at least while I was there, I did not hear any big speeches. That wasn't, it was about the music and the fact that they played certain things that we talked about before, whether it was Pink Floyd or, it was Black Hole Sun cover into Knocking on Heaven's Door. There was this feeling that there was a melancholy, that we were saluting Cornell and Chester, and I felt right about being there, and I thank Guns N' Roses for that, for subtly letting the music speak.
Well, it was a weird day. So first off, I want to thank you, Lori, and you, Nick, first. So yesterday after the show, yesterday was a weird day. It started with adulation, and then it had some sadness after, obviously, with Chester. But the adulation was after the show. Nick and Lori, I don't know when you guys found out you were able to get to go to Guns N' Roses last night at the Apollo Theater, but you guys both had +1s, and you were so kind to invite me and Alex to the show with you guys last night. So we got to go, and it was fucking awesome. So thank you so much for inviting us.
It really was, and
you're welcome.
That's not something everybody would do.
Well, Alex, it was I couldn't let the time. You had to see Guns N' Roses in your lifetime. That was the first time you got to see them. It's excellent.
Yeah, I just want to put it out there. I'm pretty sure I could have gotten laid with that extra ticket, so you're welcome.
And I know it, Nick. So I thank you tenfold. But
tension breaker had to be done.
But yeah. So when we found out, we were super fucking excited. Had our show planned today, new music with Larry. We had another guest booked for later in the 9 o'clock hour. It was going to be a nice light Friday. Maybe talk about Appetite for Destruction's 30th anniversary. And then on the bus ride home, I find out in the afternoon about Chester, and suddenly we go from the high of finding out we're going to Appetite for Destruction to this, to me literally crying on the bus talking to my wife about the passing of Chester, and then I agree it kind of felt weird knowing that we're going to be going to Guns later, and then thinking about today's show. How are we going to juggle this? How are we going to juggle both, Appetite for Destruction and Guns N' Roses and Chester Bennington? So emotionally, I was all over the map. But Guns N' Roses last night at the Apollo Theater was fucking amazing.
I just want to say, first of all, they came out and they were not fucking around. First of all, that band is like a machine, right? And they come out, and these are the first 4 songs. They walk out, they do It's So Easy, into Mr. Brownstone, Chinese Democracy, and Welcome to the Jungle. I was just like, no way.
I know, the fact that they did Welcome to the Jungle so early on,
right.
And it really was Welcome to the Jungle. Like, it was Welcome to our insanity, It's interesting. It's been years since I've seen them live, and I wasn't thinking that the music had aged. I wasn't even thinking that they had really aged. I mean, they kind of all look the same. I know Axl went through a weird period years ago, but they kind of all look the same. I mean, Duff McKagan, can I just say, I will go to a Duff...
Duff has not changed in 15 years.
I will go to a Duff concert alone, no one else on stage, every night for the rest of my life. That man is so hot and so good. Slash, he hasn't aged a day.
Nope.
And he was just fucking shredding. Slash was shredding that guitar.
He was sliding. He was tapping.
At one point, I turned to Alex and I was just like, he soloed on every single song.
Every song.
Yes.
And Richard Fortas was unbelievable. And Dizzy Reed was on keys. And I forgot her name, but
Melissa something.
Right, they had a chick
she was
keyboardist.
So freaking cool.
They had a chick keyboardist with them too. 2 keyboardists, Dizzy Reed and this woman who had like her hair in a big ponytail, and she was banging her head heavier than anybody else on that stage.
She had light blue hair, was singing backup vocals, and just rocking the fuck out in these like high, shiny heels that she was wearing. Which, by the way,
they were like sneaker heels.
By the way, I thought her and Axl like. They like picked out matching shoes before the show because he was wearing like these sparkly cowboy boots and he was dancing around the stage like a fucking maniac.
Oh, when he did Sweet Child of Mine, he came out and he was wearing a white leather jacket. I was like, is that the Paradise City jacket? And he turned around and didn't have the Guns N' Roses logo on it, but I was like, all right. I mean, because honestly, I don't know if he can still fit in that one, because that was when he was like the height of like, he was like pipe cleaner than Axl, but he was still Axl Rose.
He's lost a lot of weight since like in the last couple of years too.
But he was definitely still Axl Rose. He still has sort of the Axl shimmies, the Axl stage presence. I love when he just throws his mic stand. He just throws it, just doesn't give a shit.
He did it like 15 times, and then the roadie comes out and just calmly stands it back up.
That guy's whole job is to grab shit that Axl throws.
And I gotta say, that guy's voice is on point, because for years the rumor was, people kept on saying, oh yeah, they're gonna get back together, they're gonna do one last big tour, ... because Axl's voice is going. And Axl knows his voice is going. This is his last chance, blah, 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 blah. But I got to tell you, his voice was on point.
It's funny, Nick, I was thinking about that last night, because being there live, I was like, man, vocally, this is such a demanding fucking set. Like, Welcome to the Jungle alone is so demanding vocally, and so many of their songs are so demanding vocally. And I was thinking, man, between doing the Guns N' Roses tour, and then he was filling in for AC/DC as well, I can't believe his voice is not just like destroyed.
I was stoked. I was stoked when they whipped out the AC/DC. It was like na 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 na. I was like, nah. And they did a whole lot of Rosie, and they tore it in half.
You know, it was cool too. It felt like they did some very New York City specific stuff. Like at one point, they did sort of a Guns N' Rosified version of the Godfather theme.
Yeah.
Well, which screams, New York City. And then when they brought out the grand piano and they went into the Bridge of Layla, which also screams Goodfellas to me, hence New York City. And then they did I don't know if you noticed at one point was it Civil War where Slash played a little Jimi Hendrix riff right toward the end of the solo.
That was, I think, one of my favorite songs.
I have
Civil
three
War
words.
is my favorite song.
That was great last night.
I have 3 words to say, and I wrote it down in my phone. Civil fucking war.
Yeah. Because like
That's so good.
Because it was quiet for a second, and we're just sort of looking at each other, and like Maddie was on the end, then Lori, and then Alex was next to me, and I was on the other end, and you hear the Strother Martin, what we have here, and I look up at Maddie, and Maddie's screaming, failure to communicate.
It was amazing.
Cool Hand Luke, which is the way he gets it.
Which is the way he wants it. So he gets it.
And it was funny too. It was pushing 1 a.m. Granted, the show started probably about 10:30. It's now about 1 a.m. We have to be here to be live on air at 7 a.m.
And what we heard was, okay, they again, because Guns N' Roses, they're on Guns N' Roses time. Like I told you, the last time I saw them, which was a couple of years before Chinese Democracy, I was talking to Corey Taylor of Slipknot the next day because he was pissed because they didn't even go on stage until 11:30. That night. So the rumor was, since the show was being broadcast live on the radio on the Guns N' Roses channel and on Howard 101, they're going to go on at 10. They're going to play till 12:15 because midnight would mark the 30th anniversary of Appetite for Destruction. But it's Guns N' Roses. So they don't go on till like 10:30. We left at like 1 o'clock. And then like Alex says Eddie Trunk texts him. What was it?
Okay, so I was texting Eddie while we're leaving. We left at like 1:15. Matt and I are on the way back to Matt's because I'm crashing on his couch. At like 2 o'clock in the morning, he goes, they're running a fucking marathon over here right now. I go to sleep. I wake up this morning. I check my text at like 2:35. He was like, they finally ended. And I was like, holy shit, they played for 4 hours.
Well, listen, we didn't want to leave. We were so fucking conflicted about leaving.
But the show starts in a half hour. We got to go.
Yes.
And we also knew we had a heavy show today. Like,
very heavy.
At first we were all like, let's just all go and not worry because Larry Flick will carry the whole Friday.
Right.
Don't worry.
Yes. Right.
But,
We're going to phone it in. It's going to be the Larry Flick hour.
Yeah. So you're right. And then in the back of your head, like it's almost like it's hard to almost totally enjoy the show because you got to get a little bit of sleep because we got a heavy show today to talk about Appetite for Destruction 30th anniversary and Linkin Park and Chester Bennington. So they played Sweet Child of Mine and then they played My Michelle, two of my all-time favorite Guns N' Roses songs. So at that point I'm like, all right, it's pushing 1 o'clock. It's probably time to go now. I just heard two of my all-time favorite songs. I'm okay with it. And then they wheel out the grand piano right in the middle of the floor. And once you see that, like the November Rain's coming. I'm like, oh, we got to stay for November Rain. So they play November Rain and they crushed it. And then I'm like, okay, now we could go. And as we get to the top of the stairs, we hear the
Westworld piano of like Black Hole Sun, and I was like, no way. Because just before that, I was like, all right. Going into it, I was like, I just want to hear him do Welcome to the Jungle. So I figured that would be the encore. They do that the fourth song. Then I was like, I just want to hear November Rain. I'm like, all right. And Alex at one point looks at me and goes, oh man, we're going to miss Paradise City. I'm like, look at your fucking watch.
Yeah, and then we get to the top of the stairs. We start hearing the Black Hole Sun. We're like, okay. And we turn around. We just hop into like an empty row. We watch that and we're like, okay. And as we start to turn around and walk out again, fucking knocking on heaven's door. And we're just like, oh.
And we're like, we can't go yet. We got to stay for knocking on heaven's door. Because now we're also thinking, all right, they did Black Hole Sun.
Right. That's the tribute, right?
Knocking on Heaven's Door, also kind of a tribute. And we're thinking, all right, maybe they're going to do something big as well. But finally it was like, okay, they just finished Knocking on Heaven's Door. It's 1 o'clock. We got to get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, Lori looked at me. Lori looked at me after they did Black Hole Sun, and she goes, I wonder if they'll do a Linkin Park song. And I was like, I don't know, man. That's a little bit much.
I was thinking the same thing, and I was
because they would have had to like learn it today, basically.
And someone would have had to rap.
But I was thinking, but if there's anyone that could just pull out like some riffs out of his ass, like and just wing it would be Slash. So I was like, it could happen, And I forgot that Slash and Dove had shared a stage with Chester from Linkin Park before. They're friends. They know each other. So conceivably, you were thinking it could definitely happen, and you don't want FOMO.
I know that's the toughest part. But listen, we got to be there. Josh, our winner from last week's 70s, 80s, 90s, you're probably sleeping, but when you get your ass out of bed, please call us, 844-6-VOLUME. We want to know how your day went.
Unless you were that asshole in the Iron Maiden vest who was chucking full crowds into the beer. Then you can say
full beers.
Yeah, whatever. I'm fried. All right.
There's always that one guy who's like standing in front of us, and he's got like the vest with like the Iron Maiden patches all over it, and he's singing almost too loud for Guns N' Roses.
Yeah,
no, he was having the time of his life.
Wait, but
it's just not 1987.
And then he starts throwing bottles of water down there, and I'm like, dude, what is the upside of that? Luckily, it was like near the very end of the show, so
a full thing of beer went down.
Yeah,
it's a waste of beer.
I tell you, though, Appetite for Destruction, today being the 30th anniversary, is just such a seminal record for me. On a personal note, it's the first tape cassette I remember having as a kid. I'm pretty sure my older brother is just a year older than me. We're pretty much Irish twins, bought it. I remember it had, the skull with the crosses. I remember we didn't want to show my parents because we figured it might scare them and they would take it away from us. I was probably in 4th or 5th grade at the time, and it's the first tape that I can remember cover to cover just crushing. I probably didn't even know what half the stuff meant. Your daddy works in porno, now that mommy's not around. It probably meant nothing to me at the time. I just knew I liked it.
Yeah, I mean, I remember our boy Evil Ed is talking, I think he was around the same age. He's a little younger than you. He's like 35, 36. And he was saying, he's like, oh yeah, man, if you had that album in school, they sent you home.
Mm-hmm. I have a question about Rocket Queen. Was Slash using a vocoder?
He was using a talk box.
It was a talk box. It wasn't a vocoder, though.
No, but it's funny you mentioned Rocket Queen. Back to Duff. Duff was slapping the shit out of that bass.
What was that punk song that Duff played?
It was The Damned New Rose.
Nice.
And I've seen him play that with Neurotic Outsiders over the years. I went on a little mini tour of Europe with Duff and Matt Sorum back in the day, and I've seen him play that so many times, and I was so psyched. Axel's like, ladies and gentlemen, Duff McKagan.
Yeah, because Duff's background, he was really more of a post-punk guy, a punk guy in Seattle and stuff. Like Guns N' Roses was the first, like, honest-to-God, over-the-top, like, quote-unquote hard rock band he really was in. He was, like, mostly in these punky bands. Wait, Brian in Texas wants in. Hey, Brian, what's up, man?
Hey, good morning, guys. How are you?
Good, how are you, brother?
Doing well. Good to talk to you as always. So, just super excited listening to you guys talk about the GNR show this morning, though. I saw them August 3rd of last year when they were just getting started on this tour. And they've, obviously since added more dates and everything, but it's fantastic to think that they've actually been out on this tour now for a year. And that they're still giving the kind of performances that you guys got last night. But it was my first time seeing GNR as well, and I remember going into it. It was also 6 days after my first child had been born, which was just an amazing thing in and of itself, and to see GNR. But I did this huge Facebook post about how when I was a kid, I remember seeing the video for Paradise City and the live footage of him running across the stage and just going crazy, leaving it all on the stage for the fans. And I knew at that moment, that young, single digits in age, that I had to see GNR before I died. And I got to see them, and my experience was not quite the same as yours because obviously they did a little bit of a longer set, it sounds like. But we got a 2.5-hour set. I think Axl talked to the crowd like 3 times. And other than that, it was music, 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 music. The opening 4 songs were the same. In a couple of words, they went back to rocking and kicking ass. It was one of the most amazing concert experiences I've ever had in my life.
Yeah, Axl barely spoke to the crowd last night because we were all curious as to what, if anything, he would say about Chester Bennington. But again, as Lori said, they kind of let the music do the talking.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's great that you guys made the decision to go last night. And I 100%, from a mental standpoint, understand why you guys would have wrestled with actually going. But I don't think that there's any better way to accept and kind of cope with what happened than to be around a music-loving audience. And like I said, let the music do the talking for you guys. I think it was the absolute right decision. I'm so happy that, unbeknownst to you guys and what you were going to get out of the show, that's the decision that you made. Just 1,000,000% the right thing to do for you.
All right, brother.
Thank you.
When did you see them?
It was August 3rd of 16 here in Arlington. It's just phenomenal show.
So in other words, your baby is like just basically barely a year old then, right?
He'll be a year old next Friday, in a week from today. Yeah.
Oh, congrats!
Good on you, brother. Yeah. God bless.
Thanks.
All right, man.
No, I appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us this morning, man.
I wonder how the show, they broadcast the concert last night on the Guns N' Roses channel 14, I think it is.
And Howard 101 too.
41, and sorry, I'm dyslexic. And and that channel I think goes until tomorrow.
Yeah.
I wonder if they'll replay the concert. I wonder if they're allowed to. That'd be cool. I'd like to hear it.
All right, 844-686-5863. That's how you reach out to us at SiriusXM Volume. We're going to get back to
the life and music of Chester Bennington. And again, a little bit after 8 o'clock, we'll re-air our interview from a couple of months ago. It was like just before May. And just listen to the guy, and you just hear how much life is in his voice. It's an amazing dichotomy. All right, we'll be right back on Feedback.
This is Feedback.
Division in New Order, and you're tuned into the only station that offers you talk that rocks. This is Volume, Channel 106.
We've got your morning wake-up call covered. This is Feedback.
On Volume, Sirius XM 106.
Oh man, I used to love this.
My favorite Linkin Park song.
Little Shinoda flavor.
And then Chester's scream in this is just so fucking good. So Chester.
All right, Sirius XM 106, it's Volume, Feedback, Nick and Lori. I want to give a monster shout out to Larry Flick, who just texted me some really deep words. He's with us in spirit because, he's part of the family. And, before we go any further, we got a couple of people on the phone, 844-686-5863. I was thinking about this yesterday, and Alex just reminded me. Again, anybody who has any kind of worry, you're not alone. And what happens when people like this pass, there is sort of a tendency, not everybody, but it's easy to see where somebody would go, this guy was loved by everybody. He was loved by millions, and he had millions and millions of dollars, and if he couldn't make it, what the fuck chance do I have? And I tweeted yesterday, not that I'm, so deep, but as Lori said, we don't know where he could have been. Like, he just must have been in such a bad place when this happened. And I tweeted, if Chester only knew how much love the world had for him at the time that he needed to know it.
Yes.
Wait, let me find the exact tweet because I was a little more articulate when I had time to think about it. It just... Yeah, I said heartbreaking that Chester couldn't see all the love we had for him when he needed to know it. #depression, there's no shame, get help.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about how you can get help. So my friend Nancy Lublin, who is the CEO of Crisis Text Line, was going to call in this morning, but she just went home from work from yesterday. She has worked over 20 hours straight because, of course, Chester died in the middle of the work day yesterday. And she said their phone calls more than doubled. And most people, after they heard about Chester, wanted to call in and talk about that. She said confused, sad, angry. Those were the big words. She wanted to remind people that there is free support by text. You don't have to tell anyone who you are. You can just text TWT to 741-741 or go to crisistextline.org. And a shout out to all of the volunteers who rallied and worked around the clock yesterday to take the phone calls, to take these texts, to talk to people. There is always someone there. And you don't have to be embarrassed because they don't have to know who you are.
Right.
And a lot of these people who were the volunteers, they were distraught themselves because they are big Chester fans. So, Nick, totally no shame in getting help.
No. That's what strength is. Strength is admitting that you can't do it alone. And I don't care what anybody says, the most self-sufficient person from the outside, because everything's different on the outside looking in. Everybody gets help in some way. Everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody. All of us. That's just part of the human condition. Some are just more ready to admit it. And there's no shame at all. None. And yet the thing about it is, it seems so obvious to say that. You know, I mean, the more enlightened people would go, dude, who doesn't know that? Well, apparently there's enough people that don't.
When you say the more enlightened people, apparently there was a member of Korn who came out yesterday, an ex-member of Korn, former frontman Brian Head Welch, who
had some problems,
who basically came out and said that honestly, Chester's an old friend. We've hung with him many times. But this is truly pissing me off. How can these guys send this message to their kids and their fans? I'm sick of this suicide shit. I've battled depression and mental illness. He said, I'm sorry, I know meds and alcohol may have been involved. I'm just processing like this, like everyone else is. That's the thing. He's kind of shooting his mouth off while he's processing. Take the time. Think about it. Chester was a smart guy. He wouldn't have just done this to do it. He wasn't looking for posthumous glory.
Right. All right, we'll be right back on Feedback. Stick around.
Today on Sirius XM Sports.
Three Americans shared the lead starting today's round 2 at the 146th Open Chanwa.
Your team plays here.
Finding great candidates to hire can be, well, like trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along. Which is why you should try ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter is different. It doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them. With its powerful technology, ZipRecruiter distributes your job everywhere it needs to be to find the right candidates. In fact, over 80% of jobs on ZipRecruiter get a qualified candidate in just one day. So, while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, only ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
Used by businesses of all sizes, ZipRecruiter offers the most qualified job candidates with immediate results.
To the world of music.
This is Eddie Trunk on the 30th anniversary of Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction.
Welcome to the jungle. We got fun and games.
The second track and the first single off Appetite may have been It's So Easy, but it certainly wasn't so easy a climb for the LP after its release.
See your sister in a Sunday dress.
It would take over a year before Appetite for Destruction would hit number 1 on August 6, 1988, fueled by the success of its second and third singles, Welcome to the Jungle and Sweet Child of Mine. Today, that album is still regarded as the best-selling debut record in U.S. history. Volume celebrates 30 years of Appetite for Destruction.
Where do we go now? Where do we go?
You're listening to Feedback with Nick Carter and Lori Majewski.
Volume, Sirius XM 106.
All right, Sirius XM 106. It's volume for a Friday. Nick and Lori. And we're going to be re-airing our interview with Chester Bennington from just a couple of months ago in a little bit. But first, a bunch of people want in. Derek in Chicago. Derek, what's up, man? Good morning.
Hey, guys. What's going on?
How are you?
I'm doing all right. I have to say first before I get into the whole Chester thing. I'm so jelly that you guys got to do Guns N' Roses last night. That sounded awesome.
I think it's awesome that you as a man are comfortable saying I'm so jelly. Takes a man who knows who he is. All right, so what do you got, man?
Yeah, I know. I had tweeted. I tweeted both of you guys yesterday, you, Lori, and you. You know, about the whole thing and how I have just come to terms with, you know, my depression myself, and I'm actually commend you, Nick, for coming out on air and talking about it too. You know, and like you said, for guys, it's a lot harder because, you know, I think people, you know, look at us, you know, we're the people who are supposed to hold everything up, and to have to come out and say, you know, you're dealing with these things. It is hard, but you know, I've gotten a new job that allows me to have benefits, which is letting me be able to seek the help that I know that I need. And it's been too long that I've been kind of dealing with this untreated. You know, I mean, I work on a third floor, kind of, we have like an atrium, like a balcony if you go outside my office. And there have been times where I've looked down and been like, what would it be like if I just jumped off this thing? You know, so it's a serious thing. People have to understand that it's the people, you know, you might look at a person and on the outside, it look like they've got it all together, but that's probably the person that has it the least together that you need to keep your eye on.
Yeah. I mean, you know, the simple answer for people who don't, you know, have any experience is, you know, the struggle is real because it's real. It is. It's not just somebody, well, you're just weak. No, it's a disease. You know, it's chemical. And, you know, the simplest way to put it is, you know, if you had, I don't know, a virus, you'd go get an antibiotic. Do you know what I mean? Right. It's not something that, you know, I think there's a little bit of a change in the way people perceive it, because it used to be just like, dude, you know what? Listen, toughen up. It's, you know, that's not what it's about, as you know. Right. So, I applaud you, man. I do. I applaud you for, you got some big stundines to admit that. And as I said, you know, I mean, not to say, oh, woe is us, but it's tougher if you're a man, just because men have that stupid pride thing where you don't want to ask for help. Fuck, we don't want to ask for directions when we're lost, you know?
Exactly.
So,
never get lost. I'll drive around for an hour before I ask for directions.
Exactly. You know, but I mean,
Chester, he had 6 kids and front man of a band. You know, I can imagine the pressure that was on him, you know, to have that strong faith.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, and to Lori's point, you know, just the subject of a lot of his lyrics, you know, when you're in that position where others are looking to you for strength, that adds to the pressure. Do you know what I mean? And as I said, you know, the one thing that makes me uncomfortable about situations like this is when somebody who, to the layman, Chester Bennington, oh, he's a fucking rock god. He's a multimillionaire. You know, he is loved by everyone I know. He goes and he plays to stadiums and he's got like 50,000 people showing him love. You know, and it doesn't matter if he doesn't feel it or if he can't see it just because of what he's dealing with. You know, so that said, you know, if you're just a kid or somebody who just has a regular 9-to-5 job and you're getting by barely like so many of us are, you know, and you look and you go, well, if Chester couldn't make it, you know, what chance do I have? And that's what frightens me, that some people will perceive it that way, and it's just not what it's about.
No.
Right. I hope not. I hope it's the opposite, and I hope that this draws attention onto the problem and it gets people to pay more attention to other people.
Exactly. All right, Derek, man. Stay strong, brother.
Yes, keep
right,
tweeting
thanks,
us. And I also tweeted out the crisis text line information. People keep asking for that. It's there, Derek. So use it when you need it. Or tweet us, okay?
Right on. All right. Russ in Detroit, we see you, but we got a bunch of people we want to get to. Bob Ferguson's with us, but let's go to the tragic doll first, Lori.
Hey, Shirley. Shirley Alvarez.
Wait.
Hey, Lori. How are you? Hi, guys.
Hi. Shirley, where are you calling us from?
Calling from Queens, New York.
From Queens, New York. Now, I was telling people about you early on that you are the biggest Linkin Park fan that I know, and you were lucky enough to graduate from fan to friend of Chester Bennington's, weren't you?
I was very lucky, so.
So tell us about the Chester you knew.
So the Chester I knew was just like anybody else. Always so humble, always so appreciative with every person that he met. And a couple of times that I met him, he always gave me his dedication to listen to me, to talk to me. And after a couple of years of meeting him, he took on the lead to actually exchange emails with me and talk to me and wanted to know more about my disease. I wanted to get more personal with me because he always said he had some doctors who were friends who could possibly help me, knowing how rare my disease scleroderma was. And from there, I couldn't believe that somebody that I idolized, somebody that was such a big influence on my life, now was wanting to be more than just that friend and just a human being.
But you saw another side of him too, that he was just like everybody else in that he had a dark side, right?
He had, I think we all have our dark side, and Chester really, felt like he had gone through a lot, and I feel because he was always able to feel compassion for others and connect with other people because he's living it or had lived it before. So I think just like anybody else, we all have our good and our bad times. And Chester really did have, I'm sure, difficult times, just like all of us.
You mentioned he tried to help you to the point where he, wanted to hook you up with doctors. Are you and knowing that he had his darkness, as do we all, but are you as stunned that he actually took this action as we are?
I am. I never thought it would come to this extreme. It hurts. It hurts that he helped save so many people through his music, and at the end, he just wasn't able to save himself. He never got the help that he needed, and that really hurts me.
You said to me that he said to you, "I'm my own worst enemy." What did he mean by that?
Well, he said that he always, was thought so hard about himself. Like he always thought he could do better, and he always had like a way of bringing himself down. And I think that's where all the humility came from. You can tell him all these great things to Chester, but he wouldn't take it seriously. I mean, he was just like, I'm just a regular guy who just got lucky to be part of Linkin Park. And that's how he saw it. And I think he always did sell himself short, and I was always very humble.
Well, there was an anecdote you told me about. You went to an after party for him, and I think it says a lot about the type of person that he is. Can you talk about the after party you went to, and they did not have wheelchair? You're in a wheelchair for your disease, and they did not have
Right.
wheelchair access?
No. So a couple of months ago, there was a band called Kings of Chaos who was playing in New York City. And I went to support and see them all. It included Matt Sorum, it included Chester Bennington, and it included Robert DeLeo. And I was there, and he saw me, and he came over and patted me on the shoulder, gave me a hug, said hello to my mom. And he said, no, I have to go in right now to get ready for the show, but I want you to come to the after party. So I will give you all the instructions later on. So after the show, he came out, we took some photos, we got to hang out and talk for a while. He gave me all the information I needed to go to the after party. He left to go, get dressed up at the hotel and then go to the after party. So I met him there, and he apologized because he didn't realize that the venue was accessible. But him and a few other people offered to carry me downstairs, and I was like, no, don't worry about it. I wasn't planning to stay very long, but we got to speak outside of the venue and really have just a heart-to-heart. And I would always tell him how much you mean to me and how grateful he was for having a fan and having people like me in his life. It was a really wonderful conversation that I'll never forget.
So what are you going to remember most? What do you want to remember most?
I want to remember the way that Chester made me feel every single time I listened to the music and every time I met him. It was like bringing fire to a frozen heart. It was awakening the soul for me, and they saved me in so many ways, especially as a teenager and going through this transition of being diagnosed with scleroderma. I was going through a phase of confusion, a phase of fear. I was lost. I was in pain, and they helped me. They helped me shift the way that I thought and be more positive and try to move forward. So their music for me was a liberation, and I'll always be grateful for what they did.
So well spoken, Shirley. You're an inspiration to me. Every time I see you at a concert, you love music, you love life, and just keep living it. Going to see you at Depeche Mode in September?
I will be there, yes.
I know you will, Shirley. I'm so sorry for your loss. I know that you loved Chester deeply.
I did, and I'll always love him. I'll always miss him, and I pray hard for his family and his friends and his loved ones and all of his fans who I know are hurting.
All right, Miss Tragic Doll. We'll see you on Instagram. Your Instagram is amazing, by the way.
Thank you so much.
It is. I heart your photos.
Thank you.
All right.
I appreciate it.
Have a good day,
Have a good day. All right.
You too. Bye.
Are we going to go to Bob or are we going to take a break? Okay. Bob Ferguson is with us. Bob, you there? Oh, I think we lost Bob. All right. We should maybe either take a break or we can go to Russ in Detroit.
Oh, is
he
this
back?
him? Yeah, it looks like he's back. So just so everyone knows, Bob Ferguson works for Oxfam and worked, his organization has worked very closely with Chester over the years. Chester is one of the most charitable of celebrities. Right. He was there. He does he did a wide range of charitable works.
Bob, you there?
Hi, Bob.
Yeah, I'm here.
My bad, dude. Sorry, I didn't mean to hang up on you. So, what can you add to the proceedings?
Yeah, well, I was chatting really briefly with Lori last night, and I was mentioning that I think the story of Chester's legacy should really include his incredible charity work. Of course, he's got an awesome body of musical work, but the impact that Chester and the band and his organization, Music for Relief, has been incredible. They started Music for Relief back in 2004, I think, in response to the Indian Ocean tsunami. And their mission is to support disaster relief and reduce climate change. But over the years, they've raised millions and millions of dollars for Katrina, for cholera outbreak in Zimbabwe, relief for the earthquakes in Haiti and Japan, delivering water in Darfur, the typhoon in Philippines. So the list is incredible. And a lot of their work has to do with eco. They've planted over 1 million trees to counter climate change. And I think it really speaks to the fact that Chester was just a super thoughtful and really decent guy. His onstage persona is this sort of slight but super fierce guy who comes at you, with full force with the music. But in reality, he's just a super quiet, very thoughtful, and in a lot of ways, really strategic thinking kind of guy. And hearing all the stories on your show and with friends last night about some of the really good things that have come out. God, your guest before me brought me to tears. It seems like an unlimited amount of these stories.
Well, Bob, there was one particular organization, charity that you were telling me about yesterday, the Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America, the largest nonprofit, nonpartisan organization representing post 9/11 veterans, and that Lincoln Park and Chester worked closely with them, and there's a real irony to that. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, this is what makes it all the more tragic.
Yeah, super, super sad, very ironic, but speaks very much to the fact that Chester's, seemingly always trying to be helpful despite the things going on in his own head. In 2014, Chester and the band partnered with IAVA, Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America, on something called the Convoy to Combat Suicide, which is a campaign that IAVA created to help veterans deal with suicidal thoughts and how to handle depression. And the suicide rate amongst veterans is just insanely high, and it's for whatever reason it doesn't seem like it gets traction to find ways to help combat this. So the band invited veterans to shows on their 2014 tour and held meet and greets. And my friends at IAVA tell these amazing stories about how Chester, well, most of the band as well, but Chester in particular, would just spend countless hours listening and comforting and encouraging veterans at these meet and greets. And you guys know how those fan meet and greets go after the shows. They're usually hit and run or quick photo, and the band can't wait to get back to the bus. And oftentimes the bus call was super late because Chester was spending time with vets who needed an ear. And again, I think that really speaks to the fact that he spent his time not on stage just trying to be helpful.
Yeah, usually, if for those that don't know, if you go to a quote-unquote meet and greet that Bob's referring to, usually it's a bunch of people. You go backstage, you wait around, they kind of line you up, they'll bring the band into the room, and you basically just get like a quick hello, maybe a handshake, maybe a hug, maybe a photo, and then they just usher you right out. As Bob said, it's usually your actual interaction time with the band is usually about 30 to 45 seconds, generally.
And I think the fact that they actually found time to build this kind of stuff into their career, as a band, and Chester personally is very telling too. It's really difficult to find ways to be helpful in the context of a tour. Your manager is trying to get you to do a zillion other things other than charity work. Part of my work with Oxfam is trying to convince managers and artists to find the time to be helpful. And it's tough because there's so many other things to do besides the charity work, interviews and radio phone-ins and things like that.
And things that pay, like managers and agents like things that pay. And when you do charity, no one's really making money for that.
Yes, sadly, that's true.
It's true, right, Bob?
I understand it all too well. But they found a way to incorporate charity and do good and kindness into this mega career, which for the most part is unheard of. The usual suspects like the Dave Matthews and the Coldplays and folks like that. Somehow they figure out how to build it in. But it seems like this was maybe half of their career plan was to be helpful, which is just incredible, so helpful. And as recently as this week, Music for Relief helps Oxfam in our famine appeal with the Global Emergency Response Coalition, which is Mercy Corps and CARE and 7 other really good NGOs trying to combat the famine situation happening in Africa. And they were the kind of organization where you make one call and all of a sudden there's tweets and Facebook posts and personal quotes, and they couldn't be more helpful. And I'm really sad that Chester's not going to be around to be that helpful guy. But I'm encouraged that I have a feeling that his legacy will include this Music for Relief living on. I can't imagine that will go away. It's such a good and useful organization.
But you bring up a good point because, again, talking about his work with Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America to combat suicide, the convoy to combat suicide, that's the disease in a nutshell. Here's a guy who would sit down with these Iraq and Afghanistan veterans and tell them, listen, you're not alone, hang in. We're here for you. That's the disease. The disease is a liar. He was there for all these guys, and then when it came down to it, his mind tricked him and convinced him somehow that, there wasn't anybody here for him. That, again, that's the disease in a nutshell. The disease is just a liar.
Or maybe that's why he really understood them.
Right.
Because maybe he's had these tendencies before. Maybe he's had these doubts before. So sitting down and talking to these vets, it was cathartic for him, but
Right.
he also knew how important it was because he knew the pain too. Like,
Right.
Bob, this really sheds a lot of light for me on what Chester may have been going through. Thank you.
Yeah, I think you hit a really great point there in that I think he knew what it was like to be helped. I recall seeing quotes from him where he referred to being helped at a young age out of some really awful situations, and I guess if you really understand what it's like to be helped out of a bad situation, that helps you be a better helper in the long run.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Bob. Thanks for calling because you just gave a different side to Chester. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for the show. Talk to you guys later.
All right, Bob, take care of
Bye,
yourself.
Bob.
Listen, we're going to take a break, and we'll come back, and we will re-air our interview with Linkin Park's Chester Bennington, who shuffled off this mortal coil yesterday. And as I say, I pray to God he's found peace to his pain. But we'll give you a little listen to the conversation we had a couple of months ago next on Feedback.
I'm picking me apart again. You all assume
listening to Feedback on Volume, Sirius XM 106.
SiriusXM's POTUS presents a special town hall event with former Vice President Al Gore on his new film and inconvenient sequel, Truth to Power.
The next generation would be justified in looking back at us and asking, what were you thinking?
Along with directors John Shank and Bonnie Cohen, hear about President Trump's climate policy and the progress and setbacks for climate change. The SiriusXM Town Hall with Al Gore, hosted by Ted Johnson from Variety, today at 5 p.m. East on POTUS, SiriusXM 124.
Finding great candidates to hire can be, well, like trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along. Which is why you should try ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter is different. It doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them. With its powerful technology, ZipRecruiter distributes your job everywhere it needs to be to find the right candidates. In fact, over 80% of jobs on ZipRecruiter get a qualified candidate in just one day. So, while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, only ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
Used by businesses of all sizes, ZipRecruiter offers the most qualified job candidates with immediate results. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter free. That's right, free. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/volume. That's ZipRecruiter.com/volume for your free trial. ZipRecruiter.com/volume.
Today, we're talking about your budget and budget blinds.
People get so hung up on that word budget.
Listen, everybody's got a budget. Budget blinds is all about getting the window coverings you really want at a price that fits your budget.
Right, they have exclusive designer styles, hundreds of choices.
And Budget Blinds gives you expert service. None of that do-it-yourself. The pros bring the showroom to you, then do it all. Measure and install.
What a relief.
That's style and service for every budget.
And right now, during their 25th anniversary celebration, it's the biggest sale of the year, with special upgrades and offers.
Explain the free upgrades like the invisible tilt for shutters.
Make shutters look cleaner, more contemporary. Same with the free cordless upgrade on honeycomb shades. No cords. Looks sleek and uncluttered.
I like that. Just call this number, 800-780-8494.
Or go online.
BudgetBlinds.com.
Remember, budget means getting custom window coverings at a price that fits your budget.
And remember, 800-780-8494.
Offer good on selected products at participating independently owned and operated franchises only. Some restrictions may apply. Ask for details.
You want stories? I got stories. I'm Damien. And I'm Tim. We are okay. Go and you're checking out Volume. Your liner notes, the world of music.
You're listening to Feedback with Nick and Lori.
Volume, Sirius XM 106.
All right, Sirius XM 106, it's Volume, Feedback, Nick and Lori, as we try to conduct our communal coping session over the loss of Chester Bennington, who passed away yesterday. And Lori and I got an opportunity to sit down with him a few months ago. And I just want to take a second and say, listen to the life in this guy's voice. Mm-hmm. Listen to just how excited he is and stoked just to be here and be talking about new music and his life and the life of his band. And the point being, you just never know. You never know the private battles that people are waging because, you know, the armor they wear on the outside is there to protect them. So check it out. Linkin Park's Chester Bennington on Feedback. Are we rolling?
Rolling, rolling, rolling.
All right, we can cut the fashion talk and get to the music.
Do we have to?
Since you guys are fashion music. Ready?
Linkin Park.
Okay. No singing.
Yeah, I love it.
All right, Sirius XM 106, it's Volume. It's Nick and Lori and a bona fide rock star in our midst. Chester Bennington in the building.
Wow.
Is that me?
That would be you.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm bona fide.
All right. Before I get to my first question, I got to ask you, it's been a minute since a full-on LP album, and before we even get into where you are now, what do you want people to know about Heavy? Because you've thrown fans a bit of a curve stylistically, and the first single, you're trading off vocals with somebody, and it's not Shinoda.
It's not. He actually got much better looking and has a cooler name. Her name is Kiara, and she's fantastic. And, you know, we always try to throw left, curveballs at our fans, and they seem to come along with this no matter what we do, whether it's making like a heavy super heavy rock record or like an experimental kind of pop, hip hop, rock fusion monster, and so on this record we just focused on songs and then built tracks around the songs that we wrote.
Right.
And that was, it just kind of ended up the way it is. It was something that we didn't really plan on happening, but it happened, and that's the best way for us to like make music, is just to kind of go with the flow and see where the songs take us.
Well, here's the thing, because like the conversation is about rock is dead. Is rock dead? That's been like prevalent, right? More than I ever remember. And so what does it mean when one of the biggest stadium rock bands in the world is part of their evolution moves in this direction that you have? Like if someone says toward more of a pop direction, does that make you wince, or are you good with that?
I love pop music, so it makes me happy. It means it's popular.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything besides that. I mean, the Beatles are pop.
Right.
Like, at this point, like, David Bowie's pop, Depeche Mode's pop, The Cure's pop, Michael Jackson's pop, Otis Redding's pop. Like, it doesn't, like, there's so many different things, like, that I love that can fall under that umbrella. It doesn't bother me. I think even the Eagles at this point are considered, like, pop band.
Yeah, totally.
So it doesn't bother me at all. I embrace it fully, and I have no apologies. And anybody who has a problem with it, I'll punch you in the face.
Oh man! Well, it must have been.
There's the metal.
Yeah, you don't like it, I'll kill you.
It must have been a bit intentional, because you brought aboard ubiquitous songwriting team Justin Tranter and Julia Michaels, who they've generated hits for artists like Bieber, Selena Gomez, Gwen
Sweet.
Stefani.
Yeah.
I think other rock artists may have been hesitant to dip their toes in that water, and I as someone who loves when
I go
artists,
skinny dipping in that water.
Yeah, tell me about it.
You know what I mean? With
How did
like
that
floaties on.
Oh, why you gotta take it there, man?
You know what I mean? Like,
why you gotta make it weird?
I'm the dude that listens to Meshuggah and then goes right to Taylor Swift. Like, I don't care. Honestly, like, we wanted to work with the best songwriters in the world, and they happen to be two of the best songwriters in the world. What we care about is what we create together, not really focusing on like what they create. Like, we don't like, oh, they're going to create that Bieber song for us. Like, we focus on, we are really the creative core of what's coming out of that scenario. We never asked we made sure that, nobody came in with a song. Everything that came out of these sessions was purely out of that session at that time. So everyone walked in with a clean slate. Like, sometimes you're like, we don't even know if this is going to work. Like, what if it doesn't vibe? Like, we just bring them in, play them some stuff we've created already. And if we'll talk about our lives and we'll see where it goes.
Well, did you court them or did they court you? How did it come to be?
Oh, no. We definitely courted everybody that worked on this record in every way. And for us, like, the songwriting world, all the writers had no idea that we would even be open to that, because like, we're so inclusive. Like, we are so inclusive that people really just are kind of more afraid to talk to us than they are to like be like, hey, like, would you be interested in doing this thing? And we were just kind of like, we've done everything we could. We've done a lot in the studio on our own. We've written all of our songs, and we're just like listening to a bunch of our favorite music, and we noticed like a lot of that's like 90% of it was stuff that was written with other people, and we're like, we haven't done that before. Like, what's that like?
Well, I totally applaud you for that, because I feel like that's something, if we go back to when you started in the 90s, really, Limp Bizkit could stand toe-to-toe with the Backstreet Boys. And I feel like we've gotten so segregated in music in the last few years, I
agree. And and honestly, like, that's something that we've like strived to break down with our music, is the idea that we were just a certain type of band. That's one of the, like, we never like hated being nu metal. We hated being told that that's what we were. You know what I mean? Like, we get like that whole, like, we embrace that side of what we did, but like, that's not who we are. We're Linkin Park. Like, we're not a metal band. We're not a pop band. We're not an alternative band. We're not a hip hop group. We're not an electronic band. Like, we can do whatever we want. And we feel like we've always kind of been one of those bands that kind of lives in this kind of like malleable place, you know. And I've been saying this a lot lately, but like, you know, our musical journey is exactly that. It's a journey. It's not a destination. Like, you know, we didn't get into the music business and start writing music to like end up at Rock Island and live there for the rest of our lives and die, you know. Like, same goes with any other form of music that we like to write. Like, we're not just that one thing. And I've said this from the beginning of our career. Like, we can go on stage with Metallica and it makes sense, and we can go on stage with, you know, Jay-Z and it makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's never changed.
You know, that's funny because we're talking to Chester Bennington of Linkin Park, of course, on Volume. And it's funny because I'm fascinated by the hate that Linkin Park gets. Because, I mean, you know, you guys became so huge. And, of course, that's just a byproduct. People are going to hate. But you played I've seen you play in a bunch of heavy festivals. And there's always, like, those guys. There's, like, that one section, fuck these guys, TRL, I'm here to see Corpse Grinder, Sepultura, or whatever. And you give them, like, 10 minutes later, and they're all like...
And they're singing all the songs as they're, like,
under their breath.
Flipping us off.
In the end, it doesn't even matter.
Those are my favorite. Are like the really hardcore like metal festivals where like dudes are like literally like blood coming out of their mouth, like fake blood coming out of their mouth, and like their faces are painted white and they're wearing like spikes on their like shoulder pads, and they're like flipping me off as they're singing every song that we play. And I'm just like, all right, dude, like that's cool. I don't mind being a guilty pleasure for people. I've always kind of felt like we're the Backstreet Boys at those festivals, you know what I mean? It's just like we've got,
when
like,
you're on next to Sepultura, you kind of are. Yeah.
Sepultura, you know. We played with a band called My Vagina, or my Vagina Ate My Baby, or something like that. And I was just like, what are we doing? Like, this is hilarious. But you know what? Like, so what? It's a challenge, you know. Like, we need to go. Like, we just treat that out like every other show. Like, go out there, kick ass, take names, and that's what we do.
We do have to ask you one. I mean, I'm always interested when people do things outside of their respective bands, whether it be like Dead by Sunrise or whatever. So you were in Stone Temple Pilots, obviously. And what did you take back from that experience back to your own band? I mean, it's Stone Temple Pilots.
It's Stone Temple Pilots, dude. And they are so talented. The DeLeo brothers are like, it oozes out of them. And, you know, I think from being with those guys, like the thing that I remember calling up, like getting on, like sending out a group email, just being like, I'm so grateful to be in this band because these guys have had to go through hell. Like, you know, we don't have that problem. Like, we don't have these issues that a lot of these other bands have, and it's because of the way that we respect each other and the way that we communicate. And it just, like, being in a situation where it's almost like being in a relationship with someone who's been in an abusive relationship. Like, I would show up to like rehearsals and know the words, and the guys would cry and be like, wow, man, like, thanks for caring so much. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I would have no idea. They just, it was so, you know, at some point, like, Scott just kind of got so lost. Like, other priorities became bigger than the band. And I love Scott. And I always will. And, but you know, the reality is, like, they had a lot of issues. And so, it really gave me some really good insight and reflection on how good I've got it in Linkin Park, you know?
Well, you mentioned Depeche Mode. I have to bring up that one of your biggest fans, Shirley Alvarez, told me that she told me you love Depeche, and she said you have a secret goth side. You even had a dream that Depeche Mode abducted you once.
They didn't abduct me. That would be against my will.
So you willingly went along.
So, I mean, I've been a huge Depeche Mode fan since I was like a little kid, and I was about in 4th grade, and I had I can remember the dream to this day. I had a very vivid dream. I can remember the dream was so vivid, I can picture the playground from my elementary school exactly the way it was. So I was at school, an airplane landed in the playground, like a jet, came down and landed in the playground, and everyone rushed outside to see what was going on, and Depeche Mode gets off the plane, and they're like, "We're looking for Chester Bennington." That's my best Depeche Mode accent, right? "We'd like to make him the fifth member of our group." You know, because at that time there was only 4 guys in the band. So, and so I joined Depeche Mode, and I flew off in the jet, and and I also won my first talent show as a singer, singing "Question of Love" a cappella.
Wow!
Really? A
Yeah.
Question of Lust?
Question of Lust. My God.
Amazing.
You'd think I'd know the name of the song.
That's amazing.
Boasting
Wow.
about what a fan I am.
But you'd have to really duke it out with Dave Gahan, because I don't know. I mean, how would you have 2 amazing singers in the band? Well, I guess they already have Martin as a third.
Dude, I can wherever they need me, I'll go.
Well, I was glad to hear you're a fan
Yeah.
of theirs. Me too.
I'll play mouth trumpet on the record. I don't care.
They're gonna make us. They're gonna make us wrap up with you. I know you guys. I know you guys always like record more songs than you need. How many hundred did you record to pare it down to the 10 that you put on the album?
Right around 150 demos for this record.
Up.
150.
Yeah, out of those, we had the highest number of like songs that we felt were really strong, and we completed most of those songs. So we've got, there's like 50 tracks that are like about 80% done or more.
Right on.
So, and we're just like, you know what, like we're not going to hold anything back. Like, let's just throw the best songs at this record. Like, doesn't matter what they sound like, doesn't matter what the vibe is. Like, put our best foot forward in every sense of the word. And so that's one of the reasons why this is my favorite album. Like, I really feel like there's not a weak spot. You know, I mean, obviously everybody has their own opinions on whether they like whatever kind of genre they like. But these songs, in my opinion, they're the best songs we've ever written.
You got a bunch of features on the album. I know you won't tell us who is, but if we guess, will you confirm?
If you can guess, I'll give you a secret handshake of confirmation.
Engelbert Humperdinck.
Yes. How'd you know, dude?
Why did you say it out loud?
I know you guys are hardcore.
Secret handshake.
The secret handshake was me saying, absolutely yes, that's the
All right.
guy.
Wow.
We got to let you go.
And what sucks is like when I was like choosing my own name for my stage name, which is Chester Bennington, by the way, because like that name is so awesome. Thanks, Mom and Dad. I really appreciate that you guys were thinking about my childhood when you named me Chester. Engelbert Humperdinck was already taken, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to stick with Chester Bennington because it's almost just as awesome.
When are you going to act some more? Like, your IMDb is like crazy long, but I mean, I'll never forget when I first saw Crank, I was like, get out of here. It's fucking Chester.
You know, I would love to act a whole heck of a lot more than I am, and I think that that's a place that I can get to. One of the most fun things that I did recently was we shot the video for Heavy, and I really got to like kind of act as opposed to, I didn't like perform a lot in it. I got to act a lot, and one of the best compliments I got was at the end. The director was like, "Have you ever considered like doing it, like acting as like part of your career? Like you'd be really good at it." And I was like, "Yes, I want to do that. Do you have a movie for me? Like, let's go right now." So, you know, my original goal as a child was to grow up and be a Broadway theater actor, and that was like my dream. And then I got bit by the rock and roll bug, and I said, well,
There's
screw
still
that.
time, Chester. There's still time.
There is, but look what I've done to my body. I've got these big holes in my face. I got tattoos all over my body. You know, I've got like
makeup.
Yeah, it takes like 17 million years to get me in and out of my makeup.
One More Light, May 19th, right?
Yes, sir.
One More Light, Lincoln Park. Dude, so good to see you.
Please come back and see us again. Love talking
We
music.
can't thank
with
you enough, but we can't thank you in
back.
French. Merci.
Please come back and see us again.
I know. But just listen to his voice. As I said, he was so, I don't even want to say happy. So full of life. And it was just a mere few months ago. You just don't know.
He could have been like that a few hours earlier.
Yeah.
You know, today is also Robin Williams' birthday. And he is someone else that this disease has claimed. You know, it keeps right now, there's so much talk about mental health monies being taken out of the budget, et cetera, et cetera. This just shows you we need this more than ever. Robin Williams was a genius. Chris Cornell, Chester Bennington, R.I.P.
All right. We're going to take a quick break. A bunch of people want in, and your calls are always welcome as well. 844-686-5863 at SiriusXM Volume. Also, someone else who knows the horrible sting of suicide, Sean Morgan of the tremendous band Seether, is going to be coming through, talking about his Rise Above Festival. And he's trying to do his best to raise the flag for suicide prevention, and we'll talk to him about that. And again, phones are always welcome, always open for you. 844-686-5863. It's Feedback. Stick around.
I chose a false solution.
Feedback with Nick and Lori. We'll be right back.
On Volume, SiriusXM 106. Paying tribute to the greatest moments in music. This is a Volume playback.
On this day, July 21st, back in 1971, Black Sabbath released their third studio album, Master of Reality, often considered the first stoner rock album. In 1972, glam rock band T-Rex released their seventh studio album, titled The Slider. In 1987, the debut album from Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction, was released.
Welcome to the jungle. We got fun and games.
And in 2009, Jackson Browne won a copyright battle against then former presidential candidate John McCain, who settled a lawsuit with an apology and an undisclosed sum of money for a 2008 campaign video that used Browne's Running on Empty without permission. Today's birthdays include Kim Foley and Cat Stevens, now Yusuf Islam.
This is a Volume playback. You remember, so you never forget.
You want stories? I've got loads of stories. My favourite Beatles song that I've found truly evocative, there's two of them actually, was She's Leaving Home, which I thought was a beautiful, beautiful song. It's so poignant. And the one that Ringo Starr sings, the Goodnight Lullaby. My girlfriend, my wife now, I still occasionally put that song on, just to remind her, because when we met, she told me it was a favourite tune. I'm Peter Hook from Joy Division and New Order, and you're checking out Volume.
Your liner notes to the world of music.
It's hard to believe, but smartphones have been in our pockets and purses for 9 years now. We've all taken some amazing photos in that time, and they're sitting right on our phones. Get those photos off your phone and into your hands with FreePrints, the free 5-star app for iPhone and Android that lets you print all of those photos for free. You get 1,000 free 4x6 photo prints a year. All you pay is a small shipping charge. You can even print photos at other sizes for next to nothing. Using the FreePrints app is easy. Just select the photos you want to print, whether they're on your phone or on Facebook or Instagram, choose the sizes, and you're done. Your premium quality free prints will arrive on your doorstep in just days. Download FreePrints now at freeprintsnow.com and start enjoying real professional quality free prints. The app is free and so are the prints. No subscriptions, no commitments, just free prints. Go to freeprintsnow.com to get the app and your 1,000 free prints. That's freeprintsnow.com.
Message and data rates may apply.
If you're considering going back to school, ask yourself the following questions. Do you need the flexibility to take classes on your schedule? Do you have college credits you need transferred? Do you want to earn a quality degree from a world-renowned university? If you answered yes to any of these questions, Arizona State University is the perfect school for you. Arizona State University offers over 100 highly ranked degree programs 100% online. You'll earn the same degree as you would on campus from wherever you are, on your schedule. Plus, ASU Online accepts most transfer credits. For information, text RESULT to 35517. Learn for yourself why the Wall Street Journal ranks ASU 5th in the nation for producing the best qualified graduates, and why 88% of ASU grads are recruited within 90 days of graduation. Learn to grow, learn to succeed, and learn to thrive at Arizona State University. To learn more about ASU online degrees, text RESULT to 35517. That's RESULT to 35517.
What it do, is your boy Big Snoop Dogg, music fan, and this is Volume.
We've got your morning wake-up call covered. This is Feedback.
On Volume, Sirius XM 106.
Sirius XM 106, it's Volume, Feedback, Nick and Lori for Friday. I want to send a monster shout out to Mr. Hoover, who just tweeted, "So how many times do we need to learn this bitter lesson? Share your story, share your love, life is short." Truer words have never been spoken. All right, this is kind of a badass deal. Ryan Johnson, known to the world as Tater, was in 10 years for a minute. Let's see. Tater, you with us, bro?
Yeah, I'm with you. You there?
Yeah, man. Can you hear?
Okay. I can hear you. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, all good, brother.
Yeah, good morning.
Cool.
Good
morning.
How's your head, man?
It's just kind of in shock with everything. I mean, with everything that's gone on between Chris now and Chester, it's horrible. I just don't understand. You know, I know being out there, I was out there for well over a decade banging my head every night. So I know life has these extreme ups and downs being in that life, but that's just never the answer, you know.
So you knew Chester, your band played with Chester. Well, tell us about the guy you knew.
Well, Chester was he was like a ray of light. When he walked into the room, you knew, he was like just the happiest dude you'd ever met. And I remember because he loved 10 years. And I think we were on the Division album. And he took us out and pushed real hard to bring us out on the Project Revolution tour. So without him, I wouldn't have got to see Chris Cornell every single night of my life. And for 2 months in the summertime, man, it changed my life. I mean, I had some definite family issues from my dad, and both of those guys almost sang me through it, like for real, on that tour. Forgiveness, like big time. And he was always so happy to see everybody, but I hadn't seen him since then. And then we did a show with Stone Temple Pilots, and he was there, and we just hung out all night and talked about it. And he was telling me about how I was going to get healthy one day because I was drinking pretty heavily back then, like him. And he was sober and happy, and it's tragic, man. It's like, I didn't believe it. I like all of it. I don't think anybody believed it. I'm like, this is a hoax or something. That can't be right. But unfortunately, it's correct. But he was a true blue cat. I mean, he really loved music, and we sat and joked about how cool it was for him to be singing for Stone Temple Pilots. You know, he was a very humble dude for being the biggest rock star in the room. You know, he was a very humble dude, and I was just happy he remembered me, let alone our band. You know, like our band and all that. But he kind of came up to me and started talking. And I was like, dude, how have you been? Like, oh man, I'm great. You know, like I'm great. Yeah, it was crazy, and he's a really, really good dude, and it's just tragic. I mean, it's just never the answer for sure. But that's just what it is, unfortunately.
We're talking to Ryan Tater Johnson of the band 10 Years. Matt, you brought Tater in to talk to us this morning because you saw something that he posted on Instagram, right?
Well, yeah. Well, Tater, we've been texting back and forth, and you had mentioned this painting that you had started, and that when you work, when you work, it kind of comes in ebbs and flows and waves, and it didn't really become clear to you until after Chester's death. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so basically I'm an abstract painter artist. You know, I played in 10 years from 1998 to about a year ago. I came home and I retired, and I've got another project called Tyler it's like a solo thing that I'm doing, and a bunch of other musical projects to stay busy. But I also love abstract painting. But I work in waves, and I had this idea, this painting. I was like, I'm going to do a crown. And this has been going on for weeks with this painting, and I just was sitting there looking at it. I was like, I don't know what crown to make it for. I don't know. And then after this, obviously this morning, I woke up and I was like, because it's the first thing I kind of like forget, and then you kind of remember, and then am grateful to be alive. Right? Not to be whatever about it, but I am grateful when I wake up like that. And but I thought about him, and then I thought about all these wonderful memories that I have for the rest of my days because of that one guy, because of Chester, because of the love in his heart for music, the love in. I mean, Project Revolution was a huge like undertaking with 2 stages and all these things, and he was the main guy pushing all of it because that's just what he believed in music and all those kinds of things.
Yeah, Project Revolution was like, it was almost like a culture when you went to the show too. Like it wasn't like a linear thing, but you could definitely feel that there was sort of a like mind there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it was literally like, and we got done early. So we were on the second stage, direct support for the band Atreyu. So we got done at like 5 or 6 o'clock every day. So, you know, it was like, well, let's go watch Chris Cornell. Let's go watch Linkin Park. I mean, literally every day just have these big, huge, you know, festival-style shows with just energy for days. And it was great. I remember the first day standing in line next to, I think it was Chester and Chris Cornell, sitting somehow I ended up right next to both of them in catering for the first day. And I was just like, this is tripping me out, man. You know, this really is tripping me out. Like, I've grown up listening to these cats, and now I'm standing here talking to them like I'm one of them.
Like, oh my God, dude, they eat.
Yeah, right. Do they eat? Yeah, right. I mean, it was really like that. And then Chris Cornell would just slay it every day, and then Chester would come out and do Hunger Strike with him. And Chris was like, I have never seen anybody that just walk out on stage without warming up and sing those parts. And Chester would. He was just he lived it, man. It was in his soul, and it's brutal. I think like all of us are kind of going, where was the support system? Where was, you know, does the big pharmacy have something to do with it? Probably, right? We don't want to talk about that, I'm sure, but you know, we're going to be in trouble. But I think a lot of those things that they give people to help things like depression and stuff like that end up making them almost worse. And but it's an extreme lifestyle, and as a guy that's retired from it, that had to come home and I basically had to retrain my brain to be happy with a bite of food. I'm dead serious. Like, really? I had to, because my brain was so used to playing in front of, even, you know, nothing like Linkin Park numbers, but we've played some of those big shows like that. So your mind gets to where you're almost not happy unless you're playing a show in front of 15,000 people.
But he was about to go on that kind of a tour. You know, I keep going back to when Ian from Joy Division died, you know, killed himself on the eve of that tour. It's amazing. He was about to receive that adulation in such a major way, Tater, and now he won't get that.
Right, and I don't know if he was just kind of out of his mind, or we don't really know any of the details. That's what, because knowing him, it's kind of like the same thing as like Chris Cornell. It's like I just think that their minds were almost playing tricks on him.
And that's the hard part to wrestle with, right, Tater?
Yeah.
Right. That is. I mean, it really is, because I've definitely had when I came home from tour, I had some severe depression and stuff like that. I was sick in an Epsom salt bath because the way I used to play.
All right, Tater, man, we appreciate you sharing with us.
Thank you so
much. Take care of
much.
yourself. Taking a break. I'll be right back on Feedback.
One of the world's biggest bands has their own SiriusXM channel for a limited time. You know where you are. Guns N' Roses Radio. Live music, rarities, and artists who inspire GNR. Plus, hear encores of the band's epic first performance from Harlem's world-famous Apollo Theater. Exclusively on Guns N' Roses Radio, Channel 41. Or listen when you get out of the car with the SiriusXM app.
I've tried everything to get rid of pet stains. Between my cats and my dogs, I never know what stains I'll find on my carpet or furniture. But I finally found something that does work. Genesis 950. Genesis 950 is an all-purpose cleaner that finally removes pet stains and odors for good. I can even use it in my carpet cleaner. And I don't have to worry about exposing my family and pets to dangerous chemicals. Genesis 950 is green, but it's not just for pet stains. My husband spilled motor oil in the garage floor, and I stepped in it and tracked oil all over my family room carpet. Genesis 950 cleaned the carpet beautifully, and my husband was so impressed, he used it to clean the garage floor. Genesis 950 is an industrial strength concentrate that cleans my whole house. Depending on how I mix it, 1 gallon of Genesis 950 can become 7 gallons of cleaner. If you're tired of pet stain removers that don't work, you must try Genesis 950. It's on Amazon. Or get a free spray bottle when you order a gallon direct at genesis950.com.
Policies issued by American General Life Insurance Company, Houston, Texas. Not available in all states. For details, visit AIGdirect.com.
Do you have a family? Would you like to help make sure they'll be taken care of if anything were to happen to you? If you answered yes, you probably need life insurance. Now, do you think life insurance is expensive? If you answered yes to that too, you definitely need to give AIG Direct a call. We could find you a $250,000 policy for just $14 a month, which means you could save hundreds of dollars a year. Call us now for a free, no-obligation quote. 1-800-700-9920. Since 1995, we've helped millions of people find out if they could save up to 70% on their term life insurance. See how affordably we can help you protect your family. Call AIG Direct now for your free quote. 1-800-700-9920. You could save up to 70%. That's 1-800-700-9920. 1-800-700-9920.
You want stories? I got stories. I'm Phil Collins, and you're checking out Volume, your liner notes to the world of music.
You want stories? I've got stories. The fact of the matter is it's gratifying if people like the band and like the music. And frankly, whether they're famous or not isn't really an issue. I mean, the nicest thing actually is to have fellow musicians come in and say, that was really great. You know, that will always mean more than some movie celebrity or politician or whatever.
I'm Nick Mason from Pink Floyd, and you're checking out Volume, your liner notes to the world of music.
This is Eddie Trunk on the 30th anniversary of Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction.
Welcome to the jungle. We got fun and games.
The Celtic cross and skull's image may be the cover of the album you know, but it wasn't the cover the album originally had. The original is commonly the artwork you find inside the album. That would be the painting Appetite for Destruction by Robert Williams.
Welcome to the jungle. It gets worse here every day. You learn to live like an animal in the jungle where we play.
Depicting a mechanized rapist about to receive his comeuppance. Now, stores refused to sell it, and the band instead resorted to the Skulls cover, which was based off a tattoo design. Volume celebrates 30 years of Appetite for Destruction.
You're listening to Feedback with Nick Carter and Lori Majewski.
Volume, Sirius XM 106.
Who's to know if your soul will fade at all? The one you sold to fool the world. You lost your self-esteem along the way. Yeah. Good God, you're coming up with reasons. Good God, you're dragging it out. Good God, it's the changing of the seasons. I feel so raped. So follow me down and just fake it. If you're out of direction, fake it. If you don't belong here, fake it. If you feel like you're back.
All right, Sirius XM 106. And his Volume. Sean Morgan of Seether is in the building. Last time I saw him was at K-Rock a few years ago, and he played acoustic, and it was just as intense. Just bumping a little Fake It. This is on my my boxing playlist. I almost took my trainer's head off a couple of months ago boxing to this.
That's awesome.
So welcome, man.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
The first question I have for you, you've got the Rise Above Festival, which you've had your own experiences with suicide, but the news about Chester Bennington, does that sort of trigger anything for you? Does it automatically, like, do you get the flashbacks? And
no, you know what? I think the experience that I had was so different to that. With when my brother died, I was right there, you know. And I didn't, you know, my brother was 26 years of my life. And when Chester, I ran into him a few times. I didn't really know him well, but I think the thing for me is the like the disbelief, you know, and just 2 months after, and on Chris's birthday. See, I knew Chris a little, and I also wouldn't have believed that Chris would be that kind of guy either. So, you don't really know what to think for a while, man. And I sat in the car yesterday, man, I just don't know what to say right now.
Well, especially you're here right now promoting the Rise Above Festival that's coming up this weekend in Bangor, Maine, and you were booked here yesterday, and, you know, for reasons that, you know, you're very busy, we ended up having you today, and we just couldn't believe the synchronicity, the unfortunate coincidence.
Yeah.
You know? But it's important because I think the reason you're doing this festival is to call attention to this. It's the largest suicide awareness event, and this is, let's look at it as not just a coincidence, but appropriate and important.
I think that the main thing is that it's now clear that there are many people that you would not expect to be mentally ill in this way, to be mentally ill. I've struggled with it my whole life. There were times when I was suicidal as a kid, and maybe sometimes later in my adulthood. I mean, when I struggled with drugs and alcohol real bad, I tried to kill myself in 2015 twice.
Oh my God!
On a tour, because I was just like rock bottom, man. But that was, you know, and people from the outside would go, "What are you doing? What are you thinking?" It's like, well, you're not. You know what I mean? At that point, there's a lot of suicides are quite spontaneous. In fact, most of them are within. They decided within, if I understand it correctly, within that last 5 minutes to 30 seconds. So it's quite spontaneous. So that's why. My brother he jumped out of a window, and I believe that was decided right before he jumped out. And guys that shoot themselves, it's right before they decided. I mean, there's a guy I know up in Maine. And his friend was on the phone with his pregnant girlfriend, 9 months pregnant, and they were having a fight. And he goes, "Oh yeah," and he shot himself on the phone while he was speaking to her. You know what I mean? It's like, it's really. I feel like there's no way out right now. I need to do this right now, and that's what.
It's
a
moment of insanity.
Exactly, and I don't think there's clarity in thought. I don't think anyone. I mean, you may sit there and premeditate it for months and months and months, even years, but I think that when you make that final decision, it's quite spontaneous, and there has to be a trigger, and none of us will ever know what that trigger is. But I don't think you just wake up and go, "Well, today's the day." No. You know what I'm saying? So there's got to be some circumstance there that we don't understand, and I don't want to understand. It's none of my business. You know what I mean? And the vultures flying in and like, you know, attacking his wife's Twitter and saying all these horrendous things about her, and that she was. I don't know if you read that. They were saying they hacked her Twitter account, and they were saying that she was only married to him for his money, and she was
Is
having
this Chester's wife?
Yeah.
Oh,
and
I did not see this.
This was within hours of him dying. So people
What
are
is
people
wrong
are
with people?
horrible.
What is wrong with people?
People are horrible, and the internet has just really magnified it.
Well, the problem with it is the anonymity and the ability that you can say anything you want with no repercussion, and you can be as irresponsible as you feel like, and people hurt themselves because, I mean, how many kids have ended up killing themselves because of the online bullying and all that kind of stuff?
Maybe
And there's
Chester.
that. Well, you know,
We will never know, but, you know, there was so much hate lobbied at him for
From
this
the new
record.
album.
Yeah, because he made a fucking record.
Yeah.
Because he made a record that didn't sound like Hybrid Theory.
Right,
It didn't sound like Meteora.
right. But you know what, man? For us that we're doing this, what we do, we're all pretty sensitive guys. I don't read anything because if I read bad stuff, it knocks me out for a couple days. You know?
You're artists.
Yeah, I'll read 1,000 good reviews and I'll read one bad one, and that's the one I'll remember. That's the one that'll stick with me for the next month.
I was saying that yesterday. That's the way it is. If you're at all, not even in the public eye, but if you're just a sensitive soul at all, you know, you can get all the accolades in the world, but the one comment you remember is the one that's like
always the bad one, man.
Here's a question. You know, I struggle too.
Mm-hmm.
I've never gotten to the point of being suicidal because my thought has always been like, you know what? I'm not going to let the world win.
Right.
But that said, we were saying earlier, be it Robin Williams, be it Chris Cornell, be it now Chester Bennington, as you say, it's almost like, especially the way he went out, he hanged himself.
Yeah.
It seemed like almost like really, it had to have been spontaneous.
Yeah.
Because, he didn't leave a note or anything. And this is a guy who had a lot to say.
Right.
But, and I don't want to get too personal, but what does suicide do to the people left behind?
It's devastating, man.
Because the first thing I thought was, okay,
Absolutely.
he's got 6 kids.
Yeah.
And no one in their right mind, who was in their right mind, could do that. If nothing, your own pain is one thing, but to inflict that on somebody else, what does it do?
Well, I spent 3, 4, 5, 6 years just doing a lot of blow and drinking a lot of booze. It's awful, man. I think, there's a couple things that stick out in my mind. Was, first of all, I was in the hotel lobby and the cops were interviewing me right as my brother was still outside, and they were asking me if he was like a piece of crap, was he a drug addict and everything for an hour, and I'm going, no, he's fine, he's not. Then they take me to the hospital, they take away my shoelaces and my belt, and then so I won't hurt myself, right? It's not very, you aren't treated with a lot of sensitivity. So
did they bring you a therapist? Because that's as important,
no
right?
therapy. And then went from there. I woke up the next day and they threw some pamphlets at me about dealing with suicide. And then we went straight over to the funeral home, and then the guy was like, so we have these packages we can, we've got the funeral pack. I was like, dude, just put them in, burn them, and we'll send them home. He's like, all right, well then we have some choices of some urns for you, and we go, and there's this whole array of, the sensitivity level is absolutely zero. So on top of this like daze you're in, this is my personal experience. Then I had to still fly home, tell my parents the whole deal, and it was awful. And really, even the airlines, man, I was flying home with somebody, and I had managed to get an upgraded ticket, but she hadn't. And I explained, I was like, hey, so he just died, and they were like, we don't care. So we're sitting in London Heathrow for 10-hour layover, and they wouldn't even let her into the lounge, with us clearly sitting there distraught and distressed. Nobody cares. I think for the most part, especially you're the one going through this intense pain and this intense turmoil, and you're thinking, well, surely there's sympathetic people out there, and you'll be surprised how many people do not care about what you're going through.
See, that's the thing. I keep thinking that again, as you said, you're not in your right mind when it happens. But I keep thinking, if these folks had even the slightest inkling what it was going to leave behind, what it was going to do to those who love them.
My dad's heart broke, man. Like literally his heart stopped working. His one ventricle just closed up and seized up, and it took 5 years. We had to get him a pacemaker. I saw him 3 days after my brother had died, and he had aged 10 years. I mean, it's like especially for my dad. I mean, he's lost his son. I lost my brother, my little brother. But, if you think about it's not the natural order of things is to lose your son first, right? So, and my dad was very, very, very loyal and loved his kids a lot, right? So we watched this guy wither away for years, man, and then it took him a long time to come out of that. It took him about 8, 9, maybe 7, 8 years to finally come back to being himself again, and like making the same jokes that he used to make. And that's a long time for anybody, and he wasn't one to deal with his emotions in an open forum. So we just bottled it up and just hope we don't explode.
We're talking to Sean Morgan of Seether. I was saying earlier, it's not an excuse, but I mean, it is tough. It's tough for men. Yeah. I think it's tougher for men because the whole idea, it's not just American, it's just Western culture in general, is you're the man, suck it up.
Yeah, be tough, man.
Suck it up.
Yeah, I'll give you a reason to cry, boy.
Exactly.
Well, that's the thing too, and we also taught from a young age, like when you start crying, your grandmother gives you a cookie to shut you up, right? Or there's always a deflection from this feeling. Okay, you're sad or you're angry. We'll distract you with something else that may be a treat or whatever, and so you forget about that. But we forget that emotions like, man, anger, frustration, sadness are as powerful as happiness, and we have to deal with them as such. You can't just say, okay, cool. Well, I'm cool with happy people that listen to Britney Spears, because that's fine, but I'm not cool with people that are slightly emotional or like a little bit dark and put on weird makeup and reaching out for attention. I mean,
Britney Spears shaved her head. Okay,
I know she also had a breakdown, right? Because
this
is what happens.
Everybody.
Let me tell you, she didn't think about that.
No,
she didn't just go in there and go like, I've been thinking about this for a couple of days. No. That was also okay, so at least she didn't hurt herself.
I'm gonna get a lot of press out of this. That was not what it was about.
Exactly, it was all about her having a mental breakdown, and it's you think about. At least she didn't do something more catastrophic, right? But I mean, it was as much a plea for help as a cry for help as anything else.
Well, Sean, as Rise Above Fest's founder, you were honored in 2016 with the Artistic Expression Award from the National Council for Behavioral Health at the Awards of Excellence in Las Vegas. And I wonder, in the wake of what happened with your brother, did you feel like you had to channel it into something? You had to find a way to help others?
Absolutely. I mean, after a couple of years, I figured, well, we got to turn this into something positive and give something back, and at least try and talk about this, because it wasn't, it was my brother. There was a couple of kids in his school year, a couple of kids in my school year, and younger kids, and our drummer's neighborhood 1 month. 3 kids killed themselves, but aged between 12 and 15. And it's getting as young as 8-year-olds now. It depends on where you're at, but it's an epidemic that nobody's talking about. And some parts of the it's like nobody wants to talk about something ugly, right? Because it's not a nice topic of conversation. But it's more important because it's this black cloud, or this massive, it's this dust under the carpet is now gathering quite some size, and it's becoming a big deal, man.
See, that's the thing. You have a platform, you're known all over the world, and you have fans. And they relate to, in addition to the fact that you guys kick ass. We always talk about, is Rock dead? I'm like, you haven't heard fucking Seether, man. They're no joke. Okay.
Thanks, man.
But you have fans who relate to your story. So I guess the question is, that pressure's on you. What are you doing to take care of yourself?
Well, that's an interesting question, because it's tough sometimes to be there at the festival, for example, and I meet a lot of people that are going through this, have been through this, have experienced this, are survivors, all this, every category of that can be affected by suicide. And sometimes it's tough, man. There's like a guy I met a few years back, and he came and said, well, my daughter's tried 4 times in the past year, and she's only 16. Or my brother just died 2 weeks ago, and he was 50. So that's the other thing too, is that the age groups are so varied and wide, right? And it does become quite difficult to deal with all this. I mean, that day, tomorrow when I'm there dealing with and speaking to all these people and hearing all these stories, and especially with the vets coming back with the PTSD that we take care of as well, that's the stuff that's really emotionally draining. So by the end of that day, as good as you feel and as much as you feel like you've accomplished, you literally, you almost fall into a coma because you're just so exhausted by. And I don't know that I'm strong enough sometimes to deal with all that stuff myself.
See, that's why I asked. I mean, because you're a human just like everybody else.
Right. And as long as I don't feel like I'm just sort of out there pretending to be this happy, got it together guy, which I'm not, right? I'm the furthest from it. I still struggle with a lot of things. But I'm better at them now than I used to be.
You're on the path.
Right.
And look at how much you're helping people. I mean, again, tomorrow and Sunday, Bangor, Maine, the largest suicide awareness event, the 5th annual Rise Above Festival. We have Korn, Shinedown, Stone Sour, Skillet. How much musically have you talked with the other bands about the music for this weekend, and how Cornell, the specter of Cornell and now Chester's suicides will hang over the festival, and how you might channel it musically, bring out the message musically?
And that lineup, it's going to be nice. A lot of guys sitting around cross-legged, just meditating.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
You know what? A lot of those guys, I know for a fact Corey will probably do a tribute to Chester, because he did one for Chris as well.
Right.
And it's going to be one of those days where I think all of us will come up with something, or either in our own right, or we'll maybe come up with some impromptu collaborations as we go. And certainly that's going to be I think quite thematic for the show this weekend. It's because, man, it's like you said, it's so fresh, and it's like this really, really wide open wound right now.
Like people are going to be mourning in the audience,
exactly.
Like community. Like we find that our show here on this Talk Music channel, people are tweeting us saying that not only are we celebrating him, but we're mourning together today.
Right.
And that's going to happen this weekend at your festival.
And that, and I think a mourning is important. I think it's the ritual of a funeral or a memorial is quite good for closure. And if you don't have that, it's this open-ended thing that never really gets resolved. So not saying that this will be in any way capable of achieving that end goal, but
it's part of the process.
It's part of a process, and at least it's a start of a process. And at least if people are going to be out there, and we say, look, we dedicate this song to say Chester or to Chris or to both, then that I think there's going to be some really special moments. It's going to be one of those days. I think this one's going to be, unfortunately, a pretty emotional one, more so than normal, and it's unfortunate that it has to be that way because of, these two losses just within the past 2 months. Which it's insane.
Yeah.
How has music helped you get through your brother's suicide? Like if were there bands that were there for you, music? Because I'm trying to think about how our audience might get through either someone they've lost or even Chester and Chris. Like, how did music help you get through that?
Well, for the most part, the stuff I wrote got me through it. And there were some other songs from other bands. I can't think of them off the top of my head right now, but I know when I feel like I have to get something out or get through a certain situation, the only way I can do it is by writing the songs for myself. So like Rise Above, this was written for my brother. My dad just passed away 3 months ago, and there's a song on the new album called Sell My Soul, which is written for him. And so it's like, that's how I deal with this stuff, is to write about, okay, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I need to deal with, this is the only way I know how to process it in some way, or at least start the process of the mourning process. I'm still dealing with my brother. I'm 10 years later, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I haven't even started on my dad, so there's this whole the next album's going to be super sad, I think. Anyway, but it's just really it's more about finding the music that makes you that consoles you, even if it's on some level you don't understand. It doesn't matter which band, it doesn't matter what genre it is. If you want to play classical music, listen to that. Whatever sort of takes you and makes you feel better. That's what music's supposed to do, right? I can't tell you which songs to listen to or which bands to listen to, but certainly throw on some Soundgarden, throw on some Linkin Park, and just at least, maybe on the drive to the show or wherever you go, on the drive to work, if there was something you were into, just to remember how great they were. But then if you do feel some kind of sadness, there's no one can tell you how to sort of process that. And I think everyone will have a band that they want to listen to. Like if you're unhappy, sometimes I used to, don't listen to Leonard Cohen, because that's not going to make you feel any better. No. But, there's everybody's got a band that they can turn to that'll make you, sometimes, weirdly enough, Dale, our bassist, his big one is Sigur Rós. If he feels unhappy, Sigur Rós depresses me, but he finds it completely uplifting and enlightening, and I'm like, I don't see it, man. It makes me go the opposite direction. But then, I like Pink Floyd, so I'd probably put on some Pink Floyd music because that makes me feel better. Because I always felt like if you listen to Pink Floyd, they've been to so rock bottom that if you listen to them, that you can only come out of that somehow. That's always been my feeling anyway. But I think that's the thing, is just find whatever consoles you, and it doesn't have to be something that you can say, well, it consoles me because of this. It just doesn't it can be unspoken, and just that's what music's there for.
We're talking to Sean Morgan of Seether, and not exactly new, a couple of months, but the current album, Poison the Parish. weren't worried about any shit over that name, were you?
You know what? I'm too old to care anymore, man. It's like, once I explain the title, it's nothing to do with religion at all. It's more about the social media preachers and how their parish, if you will, are these young impressionable kids that are being taught that all you have to do is have a nice arse or a pretty face and you can become famous and rich, right? And it's like, you don't have to have any substance, kids. Just and if you don't have the arse, go put one in. If you don't have the lips, Jenna, get your lips done and then sell lip products to people, to a generation of people that, I just find it, and people will go, I don't know, whatever. I get so angry, dude.
But you know what?
Me too.
All joking aside, too, I think that's part of the issue, in that social media has amplified things in the sense that everybody, like when you meet people on social media, you're kind of meeting their representative.
Right.
And, there's times when I've been like home, on a Saturday night, and you look on social media, and people, it looks like everybody's having the time. They're living the greatest life ever, and it's utter bullshit.
Absolutely.
Totally. And you can very easily, fall into that trap, going, "Oh man, my life is shit."
Yeah, I disconnected from all that stuff a couple years back, so I don't ever go on Facebook. I don't ever go on Instagram.
I was like, no wonder you're not tweeting me back. What the fuck?
I don't use that stuff. And you know what? I tell you what, I'm a happier person for it. I don't need to be that accessible to people. I feel like that's really unnecessary. And secondly, I don't want to be that accessible, because I would again, like I was just saying earlier, I'm sensitive, man. When I did have Twitter and I did have those things, people would say something and I would lose my mind. And I would reply and say the worst things. And I didn't want to become the worst version of myself because some kid I'm never going to meet in real life says something that offends me. You know what I mean? So I just stay away from it. And I'm a much happier person without it, man. I don't know. Okay, we have the banned ones, which are fine. And we'll contribute to that. But I don't then go and read everything because I really don't. I don't need to know what you're wearing today. I don't need to know what you had for breakfast. I don't need to know how awesome your life is right now because I'm sure, like we said, it's all a facade. Everybody's trying to pretend their lives are better than everyone else's, and we're all. But the main problem for me is how everyone thinks they are so important that I care what they're doing right now. I don't. I don't care what you're doing. There's a lot more important things that I can do with my day than sit on my phone and scroll through feeds. And I understand it's important for certain aspects and certain jobs and all that kind of stuff. And it works for on a level for, we're a band that's. If we paid more attention to our social media stuff, maybe we'd have more followers. But I mean, what does it really prove at the end of the day? I don't understand how many thumbs ups and likes make my life any better. I just don't get it. And I understand that that's the way, the culture we live in. I'm also allowed to then choose to not be part of that, and I choose not to.
I wonder if there's any data about the number of suicides or attempted suicides in the social media age versus the era that came before, because there is this sense, this collective sense of, look at my life, I'm a Kardashian, isn't everything great for me? And everyone tries to look their best in their Instagram photos, but we don't look like that in real life.
Or it's the anonymity. Like, I've found myself at times, like somebody will say something to me and I find myself like, going back and forth in a little Twitter flame, and then I literally just, it's almost like the universe slaps me in the face and goes, dude, there's a person on the other end of that. And most people don't realize that because, you said, your music is bullshit, your first album was so much better, you sent it into the void, and that's the extent of your thinking. Somebody's on the other end getting that.
Well, that's the thing. You become somewhat, I don't know. I guess in some sense, I think there's.
We've never been more alone, even though we are so connected.
Right, and we've never celebrated mediocrity as much as we do right now.
Amen.
These pillars and these monuments to mediocrity, and we just go, and people are just eating it up, man. And I don't know. I stay out of it. I know there's people involved. There's some people that don't understand the concept of, hey, you put something out and you're affecting somebody, and then there are the other ones that do know that they are doing that, and those are the worst kinds of people. It's all right to be sitting at home and have like I'm going to say this and then forget that you said it and you move on. But you also, I think the problem is no one's accountable for their actions, and certainly when on the internet as a forum, you can get away with a lot of things. I mean, but look at that girl that just got convicted, right, for sending that guy text messages telling him to kill himself. Right, that's brutal. I mean, if you read them, you go, man, this girl is evil, and she's like. She's not necessarily.
And she was a kid.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's.
Is that what we're teaching our kids?
Right, and the power that she wielded over this poor kid, and then that she got off on it, like she really was enjoying it to the point where she's like, "Come on, man, stop being a wuss, dude. You say you're gonna do this.
Just do it. Just
Come on,
do it.
man." Yeah, and egging a guy on that's clearly, and he was saying, "I'm not gonna do it." She's like, "Oh." You're all talk, bro, and come on, man. The kid maybe he would still be here, maybe not.
I've seen on Twitter,
pushed him in the right direction.
I've seen on Twitter somebody like, "Why don't you die?"
Yeah,
and not even thinking it through, not even at all. It's like, no, these are not just words.
Yeah. Well,
somebody's going to receive them, and you don't know where they are when they receive it. You don't know where. In their head, in their heart, they are.
Yeah.
You don't know.
It'll be, hey, it'll be something like, hey, kill yourself, and then a couple tweets that, I just care about people, man. Yeah. I just care about you.
There's no empathy. There's no empathy when you insult someone to their face or when you hurt someone's feelings.
There's a repercussion,
and you see it in their face. You feel bad if you're a person, but you don't see that on the internet.
Yeah, you also might get your ass kicked if you say to someone.
Exactly.
I mean, I feel like, and again, not woe is me. Like, I've been on the air since before the internet. And I find that people say things, even on Twitter, where you could see their face if they have an avatar. Yeah. People will say things on the internet that they wouldn't have even said on the phone.
I know.
On the phone.
And again, I think it's like when you're in your car, you feel invincible and you can scream and yell and flip the guy off. But if he pulls over, man, you're out of it. You know what I mean? So it's like, and I live in Tennessee, so you never know what a guy's carrying in his glove box. So I'm real demure behind the wheel now, man. But it doesn't matter. Even if their faces are on they still are so far away. It's interesting when you see some of these videos where the guys, somebody will say something to somebody on Twitter and they'll actually go to the guy's house.
Oh, yeah.
And then he goes, I mean, I'm sorry, man. I didn't mean to say that. It's like, but that's the thing, is they feel so brave and so powerful and so strong when you've got this, you've got this massive, I don't know, chasm between you and the person you're insulting.
Or they go to the house and it's like a 14-year-old kid.
Yeah. Or a 40-year-old in his mom's basement. Either way, it's never an upstanding member of society.
Well, maybe tomorrow we can start. Maybe tomorrow at your festival this weekend, the 5th annual Rise Above Festival, Corn, Seether, Shinedown, Stone Sour, maybe this is something you can talk to the audience about. Like, turn to the person next to you.
Yeah.
Like, can we be humans again?
Yeah.
Can we be human? Can we have human feelings? Can we realize that we actually are all the same, whether we're famous, rich, rock star, or the person in the audience? We're all fans.
And I mean, and to realize that those things that a lot of people aspire to be, especially in this social media age, none of that's real. No, and all of that fades away. And if you're gonna base your life on looks, you're gonna end up like, I don't know, the cat lady who had 75,000 surgeries, and you don't need to do that stuff. I mean, I walk through the city here, and it's like, there's a very, very, very small percentage of people that I've seen, if any, that are represented by the magazine covers and by magazine pages. But there's a lot of beautiful people out there, so you don't have to look like that. You don't have to be that.
They don't look like that,
right?
By the way.
Exactly. Have you they get airbrushed. They get tons of makeup done, Photoshop, the whole deal, and none of that is real. And then, you aspire to be that, but then you aspire to be nothing. You aspire to be a misrepresentation of a human being who doesn't care about you either way and is just really out to take your money. And I mean, don't be like that, man.
Well, listen,
honestly,
we got to let you go.
This guy's awesome.
Sean Morgan of Seether, the Rise Above Festival, the new Seether album, Poison the Parish. Bro, continue to live your truth, man.
Thanks, man.
Because it's as real as it gets.
On a terrible day like today, you're uplifting your hope.
Thank you. Well, I guess that's the goal of the festival and everything. So, thank you guys for having me.
Sean Morgan,
thanks for hanging with us. All right, taking a quick break. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Feedback on Volume, Sirius XM 106.
This is Hey Bulldog by the Beatles. Hey Bulldog by the Beatles. Hey Bulldog by the Beatles. Available now on iTunes.
Home isn't just a place, it's a feeling. Whether you're at home, your business, or online, ADT helps keep you safe with security systems, home automation, alarms, and surveillance, so you can feel at home wherever you are. Go to ADT.com to get that feeling. ADT, home, safe home.
This is not an offering to sell a franchise. Franchise offerings are made through the franchise disclosure document. Spring, summer, or fall, outdoor living has never been more popular. Everyone is looking to beautify their patios, pools, driveways, and more, which means Concrete Craft franchise owners are gearing up for yet another busy year. That's why we're looking for people like you to become franchise owners to keep up with the incredible demand. Concrete Craft is the nation's #1 decorative concrete coating franchise, and you won't believe how we transform surfaces into beautiful projects in and around the home year-round, including interior flooring and commercial spaces. If you've always wanted to own your own business, Concrete Craft could be just what you're looking for. You don't have to know a thing about decorative concrete because we'll train you and your team. You market the business, supervise the jobs, and let the compliments and the projects roll in. There's never been a better time to own a Concrete Craft franchise. But the early bird gets the worm, so call 877-YOUR-OWN-BOSS today. That's 877-YOUR-OWN-BOSS. 877-968-7696.
A virus that drains bank accounts. A hacker who holds files for ransom. Software that turns webcams into peep shows. Cybercrime keeps getting scarier and more personal. But you can stay safe with Kaspersky Lab, the world's most awarded internet security. 400 million people trust Kaspersky to protect their money, privacy, identity, and data online. Get your Kaspersky protection today. Use promo code XM for 50% off Kaspersky Total Security at Kaspersky.com.
This is Jim James, and you're tuned into the only station that offers you talk that rocks. This is Volume, Channel 106.
Want to talk music?
Music's got to be part of everything. Rock is not dead.
I was just so into the conversation, so I really wanted to talk.
You've come to the right place. This is Feedback.
On Volume, Sirius XM 106.
Sirius XM 106, it's Volume. Feedback, Nick and Lori. Sean Morgan of Seether. I hadn't seen that guy in about 5-6 years, and man, he's intense. New album is called Poison to Parish. He just left us. He's in charge of the Rise Above Festival because he lost his brother to suicide, and he's doing this festival to sort of combat suicide and just suicide prevention and awareness. He's, He's inspirational for sure.
He was amazing. That wasn't an interview. That was a conversation. And I think what's so important is whether you're a Linkin Park fan or not, whether you cared about Chester as a musician or not, Chris Cornell, same. Everyone knows someone that has been touched by suicide. And this conversation this morning, for me, as sad as it is also uplifting because we can do something about this and we can be nicer to each other and we can help someone. Like you said earlier, so eloquent, Nick, if we know someone who needs help, like just ask them, how you doing?
Yeah.
You know, we can do that. We can do that. It's not that hard. I know we're all busy, but how about don't scroll Instagram 3 times today and in real life ask someone about how they're doing.
I mean, the worst that happens is, if you have a feeling about somebody, the worst that happens if you say, hey man, you okay? The worst that happens is, maybe have a little bit of an embarrassing moment. If they're like, there's nothing wrong. What's wrong with you? Leave me, listen. I'll live with that. I'll live with the embarrassment. I'll live with the 4 minutes of embarrassment rather than, a lifetime of regret. So anyway, Ryan Key, formerly of Yellow Card, great band.
Yeah.
He's calling in. Is he with us? He was pretty tight with Chester.
Hey, real quick, on Twitter, we got some love for our segment there with Sean. Andrea Louise hit us up on Twitter at SiriusXM Volume. This segment with Sean Morgan is helping me today more than you could ever know. And Ron at More Trucker, interview with Sean Morgan was beautiful and moving and important. Outstanding job by all. Sean was a really breath of fresh air, man.
And nothing for nothing, that's a phenomenal band. We were just talking. I just mentioned. I wasn't kidding. I said, that song "Fake It" is on my boxing playlist. It's great, and the Remedy's still one of my favorite guitar riffs of the past 10 or 15 years or so. So check them out. See, there's a great band.
Yep, David Plunkett. Feedback was right on with Sean Morgan interview. He's got a great Twitter handle at Rock and Roll Doggy.
All right, so Ryan is here.
Good morning, Ryan.
Ryan, you with us, brother?
Good morning, man. Yeah.
And very early good mornings to you. I know you're out on the West Coast. Thank you so much for calling in this morning, but we know that you wanted to be a part of this conversation and the celebration of Chester Bennington this morning.
Yeah, how's your head, man?
No, I'm okay, man. I set my alarm to make sure I was up for this, but I was listening in just now, you guys talking, and I just think it's good to be clear, honest. I I definitely had the honor and the pleasure of, getting to tour with Linkin Park with Yellowcard, and in 2014, I had pretty much an out-of-body experience getting to sing on stage with Linkin Park, along with some of my friends in Issues and A Day to Remember and some other bands that they asked to be a part of a special surprise show they did for their first ever Warped Tour appearance. But I think I do want to say that, while I did get to meet Chester and get to be around him on several different occasions, we weren't friends on the level of, texting each other, how you doing, and hanging out on a regular basis. But I think that's why it's kind of, for me personally, sort of a little overwhelming on how affected I was yesterday, because, I was able to be a part of his life in some small way, but I don't think I really realized how he affected mine until yesterday, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does.
Well, Chester was so important to you. Like, you almost looked up to him in a way. He gave you confidence, right? Like, going on stage. I read your beautiful Instagram post yesterday. So if you wanted to maybe summarize that a bit.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. I mean, that was just what I posted was one small moment to sort of explain what an amazing dude he was. And if you're a musician or an artist and you can't even fathom what it's like to look up to someone like that is, had the success he's had and has the reputation he has of just being this incredible person that everyone he encounters says, yeah, he's the best dude, and the thing is that all the dudes in Linkin Park are incredible. Yellowcard had the pleasure of, and like I mentioned earlier, the honor of touring with them in Japan in 2007, and they were so busy. Minutes to Midnight was just out then, and they were so busy while we were there. But they made an effort every day to, like, every member of the band made an effort every day to stop by, whether it was catering or the dressing room or whatever it was, to say hello to us and, do you guys have everything you need? But it's funny when you read posts right now that are happening from people who encountered the band and had experiences with Chester. A lot of them will say, all the dudes are amazing, and also Chester was sort of the most outgoing and just, overwhelmingly like, hey, are you okay? And do you have what you need? He was just that guy. And in 2014, at Warped Tour, as far as I understood it, none of the guys in Linkin Park had ever even been to Warped Tour before. As a fan, and I could be wrong, so don't quote me, but that's what I understood. So not only were they there for the first time as fans, but they were also performing for the first time that day. And they had asked several of us to get on stage with them and just jam out. And obviously, you can imagine what an overwhelming experience that would be. It's like, I'm about to, because it wasn't just, hey, stand in the back and like sing a harmony to the song. They wanted me to like go out and sing lead vocals to what I've done by myself.
Wow.
And they wanted me to get on stage and sing lead vocals, and I was freaking nervous. And I just remember being backstage, back behind the stage before we got going, and it was almost like he just could tell. It was just like an intuitiveness. He could just tell that I was kind of freaking out a little bit, and he just came over and threw his arm around me and said, "Dude, this is, thanks for being here, man, and you're gonna kill it. This is gonna be awesome." And he didn't have to do that. You know what I mean? I've had the pleasure of meeting so many people that I've looked up to, and so many musicians that I respect and have inspired me, and all of them have been pretty incredible for the most part. But I just think, he didn't have to do that. He didn't have to come over and say, "Hey, man, I'm looking forward to this, and it's all good." Just to comfort me, and I'll never forget it. I will never forget it, and I don't, as I mentioned earlier, I just don't think I realized like how much he affected my life in a small way, but today it became in a big way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, to your point, it seemed like we just heard from a bunch of people earlier. He had worked with Iraqi and Iraq War and Afghanistan War veterans to try to help them to combat, suicide from PTSD, etc.
And, so many other people, whether they just be fans, people in other bands, talked about how generous he was and always like, hey, are you okay? Is there anything I can do? How can I help you? That's part of the reason why it's so stunning and so painful that this guy didn't feel that he had that same support for whatever reason.
I know, man. And it's, there's nothing any of us can do at this point, but I certainly wish that when I say that we weren't on the level of friendship that we were like texting and hanging out on a regular basis, I have to be honest and say that I wish we were. I don't know that I could have done anything, but he was a light, man, that guy. And you could just I posted this in the short Instagram message I did, searching for words to say. It's just that every time I was around him, he was always smiling, and he was always just seemed to be so stoked on everybody, on whatever situation he was in. And I know that he struggled with this darkness and these demons that he had. But I also know that those smiles I saw were real, and it's heartbreaking, and none of us will ever really know why. But I do know that my personal encounters with him were nothing but inspiring and positive, and I'm lucky to have had them.
Sean, hearing you talk about yourself being nervous before a show, and talking about Chester kind of lift you up. Most people, when we think of a frontman of bands, we think of confidence, and we don't get to hear, them as a normal human being, having a normal human emotion, being nervous. We just think, they're out there, they're rock stars, this is what they do. And although it was a small gesture of him just kind of tapping you on the back, as you say now, you look back at it, and it meant much more than you even realized in that moment. And looking back, it meant so much more. And what we're getting here about Chester, because we've talked to a bunch of people today, and you're reiterating it, is he was more than just a great musician and a great singer, but he was just, at the end of the day, and I think it's what matters most, is he was just a good person. And often in life, it's the little moments, it's these little things, these tiny little things, that little tap on the back that means so much to people in the long run.
Yeah, you got to see Chester the guy.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, the first chance we had to get to know them, we toured with them in Japan, and I remember, I mean, some one of you guys said earlier just what an influence they were, like how much we looked up to them. I mean, the email chain of us first going on tour with them was so intense, because they they wanted us to go on tour with them because they were like fans of my band, of Yellow Card, and that was just like, what? Like to think that we were even on their radar, it was like, what? And then we're playing the Tokyo Super Arena with them, 3 or 4 months later in front of 20,000 people. It was just mind blowing. But on top of all of that, about how just imagine how insane that experience was as a 27-year-old in a rock band. But then you're sitting in catering in Tokyo or Osaka or wherever it was, and Chester Bennington from Linkin Park pops his head in the room and goes, "Hey man, you guys having fun? Like, are you guys got everything you need? Like, if you need anything, just let us know." And at the moment it was just kind of like, whoa, that was crazy. But now looking back on it, obviously it holds a lot more weight, because I think you go, wow, man, that guy was really something else, because you're playing in front of 20,000 people for 2 nights in a row. You don't have to swing by catering to say hi to the opening band, and it's not even a slight on artists that don't. It's just usually that's not a thing, if that makes sense. So, it's not saying that other artists are not kind or nice. It's just that it's not a thing that kind of outreach and that kind of kindness, going out of their way to do that. In my experience, Linkin Park and Chester in particular was out of the ordinary.
I know that Yellow Card broke up earlier this year and that you're working on solo material at the moment. I was wondering if yesterday, after this happened, did it make you want to reach out to your ex-bandmates and say, look, I know we're no longer a band, but we still love each other like family, in the wake of this?
We definitely had. I flew. I'm doing some like solo acoustic private event stuff out on the West Coast this weekend. So I was on an airplane at like 5:30 in the morning yesterday from Nashville, out west. And as soon as I got to the hotel, I was exhausted. I laid down, I went to sleep, and I kind of woke up mid-morning, obviously, to a group text. And what's amazing is it wasn't just the band; it was the crew as well. We still have a running kind of group text message with all the band and our crew guys, and it was definitely a moment of, man, this is crazy, and I hope you guys are well. So yeah, I think it certainly affected us on that level.
All right, Ryan. Listen, man, we appreciate your time. And
6:45 a.m.
Yeah,
West Coast time. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay. I mean, honestly, for lack of a better way to say it, it's the least I could do, to be a part of something like this. And I appreciate you guys having me because, I've said this twice, I think already. Chester and I were not, hang out at each other's houses and buddies, but we did encounter each other and I think affect each other's lives in a really cool way. So I'm honored to be a part of something like this, and just to be able to have my voice heard as saying, this person was incredible and affected me in such a positive way. It's a special thing.
All right, brother. We appreciate you, and come see us when you're in New York and you got some new stuff out, all right?
And bring that acoustic guitar.
I will do. I'll be there this fall a couple times, so I'll see you guys soon.
All right,
Thank
brother.
you, Ryan.
Take care. Ryan Key. Let's take a break. We'll be right back on Feedback.
There's a place on the corner of Cherry Street. We would walk on the beach in our bare feet.
This is Feedback.
And it felt so right. Sleeping all day, staying up all night. Staying up all
Paying tribute to the greatest moments in music. This is a volume playback.
On this day, July 21st, back in 1971, Black Sabbath released their third studio album, Master of Reality, often considered the first stoner rock album. In 1972, glam rock band T-Rex released their seventh studio album, titled The Slider. In 1987, the debut album from Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction, was released.
Welcome to the jungle. We got fun and games.
And in 2009, Jackson Browne won a copyright battle against then-former presidential candidate John McCain, who settled a lawsuit with an apology and an undisclosed sum of money for a 2008 campaign video that used Browne's Running on Empty without permission. Today's birthdays include Kim Foley and Cat Stevens, now Yusuf Islam.
This is a volume playback. We remember so you never forget.
You want stories? I've got stories.
One of the reasons that Frank signed us was because he listened to us play in his living room at 7 o'clock in the morning. And this was the Pretties for You album. This is when the Alice Cooper Band was as psychedelic as you could get. And he sat there and he listened and he goes, I don't get it. And I went, is that good? And he goes, yeah. He said, I'm Frank Zappa and I don't get it.
I'm Alice Cooper and you're checking out Volume, your liner notes to the world of music.
Any coffee drinkers out there? Yeah, me too. Well, have you heard about VitaCup? It's the coffee everybody's talking about. VitaCup is delicious, vitamin-infused coffee in recyclable BPA-free single-serving pods. Personally, I can't get enough of the stuff. VitaCup's unique vitamin blend helps me feel energized throughout the day. No more midday crash. Like many of you, I take care of myself. The yoga, the gym, eat right, whatever it takes. But it's not always enough. The right vitamins, the ones in VitaCup, have really made a difference. VitaCup is packed full of B6 for stress and weight, B12 for energy, D3 to boost my immune system, all the key essentials, and again, it's a super tasty cup. VitaCup offers several coffee flavors and a supercharged green tea that, in fact, I'm drinking right now. Do yourself a favor. Visit VitaCup.com and use the code RADIO20 for 20% off your first order. That's Radio20 at VITACUP.com.
These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Howdy, folks. It's me again, Jeff from CatSpotLitter.com. Listen here, cats are cool. I know it, and the folks that listen to this station know it. Heck, you've helped make CatSpot become the fastest growing cat litter in America. So if you have a cat, or you know someone that has a cat, you gotta listen to what I'm saying. That litter box, woo-wee, it can get to stinking. So I'd like to invite you to try CatSpot Litter. Made from just one single organic ingredient, real coconut. That's it. Bottom line, CatSpot 100% zaps a cat urine smell. Hey, you won't find cat spa litter in stores. We ship it straight to your front door. Just go to catspalitter.com, watch the videos, read the reviews, and hold on to your britches, folks, because you're going to be amazed. If it don't work for you or your cat, that ain't no problem, because we'll give you your money back. Catspotlitter.com. Hey, I appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Chris from Squeeze.
And I'm Glenn Tilbrook from that band. You know the songs, now learn the stories behind them. This is Volume.
We've got your morning wake-up call covered. This is Feedback.
On Volume, Sirius XM 106.
All right, Sirius XM 106, it's Volume. Just want to remind everybody that if you miss any part of the show, you can listen anytime on demand at SiriusXM.com or in the SiriusXM app. I was listening to our Judd Apatow interview the other day. But if you missed Sean Morgan from Seether, who was inspirational, to say the least, you'll definitely want to check out our conversation with him. It's Nick and Lori for a Friday. Tom in Syracuse wants in. Tom, good morning. What's up?
Yes, good morning. I just wanted to call and express gratitude for what this morning's show to me was a nice therapy session for many that need it, and a respectful wake towards Chester. A great job, and just a phone hug from me to all the feedback friends.
All right, brother.
Thank you so much for saying that. It's difficult. It's not easy to go on almost no sleep and talk about such a difficult topic, but, you know, I'm actually encouraged and woken up by it.
Yeah, a virtual hug right back to you, Tom. It's been kind of I felt the same way this morning. You know, talking about it with everyone has been kind of cathartic for me as well.
There's been so many highs and lows in the past 24 hours. It's kind of insane, honestly.
I don't know how you guys feel, but it's a weird thing when you for me when I first found out about this, it's very upsetting. But then I also go into work mode.
Yeah,
you know, we have the show to plan
you're
for,
like split in half,
and then I'm on the phone with my wife on the bus ride home, crying about this, literally crying about this, because, the Cornell death hit me very hard, but this one, Chester's only 2 years older than me. This is a band that I came up with in the business. I've told you guys, in the year 2000, I was interning at K-Rock Radio here in New York City. It was the home of Howard Stern at the time.
Right.
Linkin Park was on tour. POD. No one knew who they were, especially on the East Coast. They're an LA band. And we got these cassette singles, remember cassette tapes, of the band to hand out at just events, doing promotions. And Linkin Park, after their set, came over to our booth. It was just a couple of promotions guys, no one famous from K-Rock, no Howard Stern people, anything like that. And they just hung out at our booth, and they would just sign cassette tapes of people that wanted them, and they just hung out, like 5 regular guys just hanging out. And this is one of my first experiences and first major memories of working in radio in this business. So as Linkin Park has grown in this business, you know, I too have grown in this business for the most part, and I feel like I came up with them. So, and over the years, I've had a chance to interview. You know, we interviewed him. I interviewed him on my old radio station. I interviewed Chester on his other project, Dead by Sunrise. So, you know, this death has hit me very hard.
And I just want to say too, you know, as much as we do appreciate, you know, Tom and everybody saying things like that about like, hey, thanks for what you do. It's not about us. You know, it's about you, and it's about your feelings and your thoughts and how music affects you and what bands like Linkin Park or Chester or what events like this mean to your life. So we appreciate the love. We take it. We appreciate it. But, you know, it's really about you. I don't want to sound cliche, but I that's important to me that you know that we all know that.
Yeah, Tom said, you know, we've helped him this morning, but I would say, you know, our listeners help us. It's a two-way street.
We help each other.
Like I told you, I mean, like last night, I didn't expect it, but just standing watching Guns N' Roses when they did Knocking on Heaven's Door, I just started to cry in the middle of the Apollo. Like, what is happening? So, I mean,
a human moment, you know, being connected with music and, you know, emotions.
I reject your humanity.
Listen, Nick, on the bus ride in this morning, I'm looking through all the music websites, just trying to see what happened last night, if there's any more news. And there's a posting of Chester and Chris Cornell singing "Hunger Strike" and together. And literally, here's you know, two people I grew up with musically, Chris Cornell and Chester Bennington, singing "Hunger Strike." I'm on the bus huddled in the corner crying, so trying not to, Alex is sitting across from me, so he doesn't see me. But I had the same human moment you had last night.
I was just being nice. I saw you.
And I don't think the point should be lost that, yes, in addition to losing Chris Cornell, who Chester was close to, Chester actually sang at the funeral. It's just, the irony is just so painful.
Well, have a good weekend, everybody. Hold everybody safe. Tell someone you love them. Feel better.
Keep your heads up. Peace.
The 2017 Open Championship. Golf's best players have gathered on the shores of the Irish Sea to vie for the oldest of the sport's major championships. 3 players are tied atop the leaderboard at 5 under, heading into round 2.
And Jordan Spieth gets a birdie.
It's a near-good picture. What a round of golf for him.
He makes an eagle. Brooks Koepka.
Open Championship Radio on Sirius XM is on the grounds of Royal Birkdale, calling the action. Coverage of the Open Championship is on now on Sirius 208 XM 92.
When you have sleep apnea, traveling can be a real drag because you have to drag your big, bulky home CPAP device with you everywhere you go. But not anymore. Now you can travel easily and sleep comfortably anywhere thanks to Transcend, the world's very first mini CPAP. And right now, you can try Transcend absolutely risk-free for 10 restful nights. So call now, 1-800-900-8313. Our smallest and most advanced portable design ever, Transcend is as small as a soda can and weighs less than a pound. You can even add a battery that's as tiny as a deck of cards. Transcend is so incredibly small and light, you can easily fit it in your briefcase or purse to use anywhere you go. It's FAA compliant too, so you can even sleep comfortably while flying. Now you can enjoy the freedom to sleep comfortably anywhere. But don't delay. To receive your 10-night in-home trial, call minicpap.com now. 1-800-900-8313. Again, that's 1-800-900-8313.
Today, how to incorporate your business in just 10 minutes so you won't lose everything if you get sued. Step 1, stop putting it off. If you're not incorporated and someone sues your business tomorrow, it's not just your business at risk. You can lose everything: your home, your car, even your life savings. Step 2, call the following number for a free 10-minute incorporation guide from Incorporate.com. 1-800-700-4214. They don't provide legal or financial advice. They just make incorporating quick and easy. So you can incorporate or form an LLC in just 10 minutes. That number again is 1-800-700-4214. Step 3, congratulate yourself. By taking just 10 minutes to incorporate your business or form an LLC, you protected your home, your car, and your life savings. And that is how you incorporate your business in just 10 minutes. But hurry while they're still giving away these 10-minute incorporation guides for free. Call 1-800-700-4214. That's 1-800-700-4214.
You know the songs, now learn the story behind them. I'm Demi Lovato, and this is Volume. Listen, talk, rock.
You want some stories? I got motherfucking stories. My first rap album was called Rhyme Pays, and I used the hook from War Pigs on it. So that's when people say, why you just get into rock? I'm like, well, if I just got into rock, why would my first rap album title cut have a War Pig sample?
Right. Counting my cash, Rhyme Pays, Rhyme Pays.
I'm Ice-T, and you're checking out Volume, your liner notes to the world of music.
This is Eddie Trunk on the 30th anniversary of Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction.
Welcome to the jungle. We got fun and games.
Finding someone to produce Appetite proved easier said than done. The band initially did demo work with Nazareth guitarist and producer Manny Charlton, as well as Quiet Riot producer Spencer Crawford. Paul Stanley of Kiss was considered at one point at the suggestion of drummer Steven Adler, who was a huge Kiss fan.
Your daddy works in porno. Now that mommy's not around. She used to love her heroin, but now she's underground.
Mutt Lange was deemed too expensive, and the duties ultimately fell to producer Mike Klink. Volume celebrates 30 years of Appetite for Destruction.
50 years of great journalism. And now, this. Welcome to Rolling Stone Music Now.
On Volume.